Hello, my dear friend of sleepy history. Tonight, as the quiet
As
whispers of the
forests
world settle
subsided,
around you,
land rose,
come with me on a
shaping
gentle
the
journey.
planet.
A journey far back, almost 300 million years ago, into a world where forests grew so tall. Their trees soared like the nearly 40-meter-high statue of Liberty Torch reaching for the sky. Imagine dragonflies with wingspans as wide as a modern-day hawk's, gliding softly through misty air. Creatures so grand, so wondrous, they might seem born from the pages of a fairy tale. But this is not just a story. It's a lullaby of Earth's ancient heart, told to soothe your soul and cradle you gently toward peaceful dreams. Before we begin, dear friend, tell me what hour holds you tonight. Leave your time below. Let's see if our dreams meet beneath the same moonlight. Close your eyes now. Let your breath slow. And together, let's wander through this enchanted ancient forest. Part 1, the giant forests. 1, the coal swamp forests. A whispering world of towering trees and misty wetlands, where time itself began to turn into stone. Lycopods and giant ferns, the pillars of a lost forest. Long before flowers, before birds, before the whisper of wings or the color of petals, there was only green, a deep, endless green. Over 300 million years ago, near the warm equatorial heart of ancient Earth, the world was covered in primeval forests. Not of trees as we know them, but of towering lycopods, giant horsetails, and tree ferns, older than memory, older than sorrow. The lycopods, ancestors of today's tiny club mosses, reached up to 30 meters tall, their trunks wrapped in diamond-shaped leaf scars that shimmered like ancient runes. They had no flowers, no fruits, no seeds. Only spores, carried on the wind like silent prayers. Around them, calamites grew in thick, bamboo-like clusters, while tree ferns unfolded wide green fronds, gentle and feathered, like open hands reaching to the sky. They didn't grow to be admired. They didn't need to be seen. They simply were patient, steady, reaching upward through damp and shadow. And maybe, in some quiet way, they remind you of yourself. Because even in darkness, they grew. Even when no one noticed. Even when the world was still learning how to listen. These forests built the air we breathe. Their roots drank from silent swamps. Their leaves pulled CO2 from the sky, cooling the planet, raising oxygen to some of the highest levels Earth has ever known. They shaped the land beneath your feet, turning fallen trunks into peat, and over eons into coal. A gift forged from quiet persistence. So if tonight you're tired, if the world has felt too loud, let this forest hold you. Let these ancient plants remind you, you don't have to bloom loudly to matter. You don't have to be seen to be sacred. Some of Earth's greatest legacies began in silence and grew only because they refused to stop. The swamp beneath the forest, a world of wet roots and whispering soil. Beneath the towering trees of the Carboniferous, the ground was not solid. It was soft, trembling, breathing. These forests grew not on firm earth, but on vast, waterlogged swamps, where every root sank into darkness, and every step squelched through moss, mud, and time. Rain fell endlessly, feeding the shallow, stagnant waters. There were no winters, no dry seasons, just an eternal damp, warm, thick, and green. The soil was alive in a way we rarely understand today. Ancient mosses carpeted fallen logs. Fungi grew in the shadows, quietly exchanging nutrients with the roots. There were no worms yet, no beetles to churn the earth. Instead, the mud held layers of stillness. Where the past did not decay, it waited. It was in this silence that the future of coal was born. When trees fell, they didn't rot. There weren't enough microbes to break them down. Instead, the fallen giants were gently buried in silt, in leaf litter, in time, layer after layer, until all that was green became dark, and all that was soft became stone. But there's something comforting in that, isn't there? That even when we fall, even when we sink, there is still a kind of becoming. The swamp didn't erase the forest, preserved it, tucked it in, let it sleep. And maybe tonight you too are being held, not broken, not forgotten, just becoming something deeper, the making of coal, when time presses memory into stone. Deep beneath the roots, where sunlight never touched, a quiet transformation began. As the ancient forests of the Carboniferous grew, they also began to die, not in tragedy, but in rhythm. Trees fell, one by one, and vanished beneath layers of mud, silt, and still water. But instead of decaying, they were preserved, wrapped in the gentle weight of time. With each passing century, the swamp grew deeper. More trees fell, more layers formed, the pressure increased, the heat rose, and slowly what was once leaf and bark and root began to change. First it became peat, soft, spongy, brown. Then, over millions of years, it compressed into lignite, then bituminous coal, and finally into the dense, black stone we call anthracite, gleaming, silent, ancient. And inside every shard of that coal is a forest's heartbeat, fossilized, a breath of fern, a fallen lycopod, a moment in deep time, now resting in your palm. We burn that coal now for warmth, for power, for light. But maybe, just for a moment, we can also listen to the stillness it came from, to the softness it once was, to the patience it took. Millions of years of silence becoming strength. So if you feel like you're buried, if you feel the weight of time pressing in, remember, you too may be turning into something strong, something steady, something radiant in the dark. 2. Forest ecosystem structure. The layered canopy, a living cathedral of green. High above the swampy floor, a vast green architecture unfolded. The Carboniferous forest was not flat. It rose in tiers, like a cathedral built not of stone, but of stems, leaves, and light. At the top stood the lycopods and tree ferns, reaching 30 meters into the sky, their crowns soaking in what little sunlight pierced the clouds and mist. Beneath them stretched a second layer, thick clusters of calamites, giant horsetails, and smaller fern-like plants. Lower still, close to the damp, dark soil, lived mosses, tiny liverworts, and the first mushrooms. A quiet floor, rich with decay and new beginnings. Light was not evenly shared. The upper canopy drank most of it, leaving the lower levels in gentle twilight. But even in shadow, life persisted. Some plants evolved to thrive with less light, others climbed or stretched quickly to catch a single golden thread of sun. And isn't that something we understand? Some of us grow in full light, some of us grow in shade, but all of us reach, just like the forest, in silence, in patience, layer by layer becoming something whole. The struggle for light, when shade becomes a test of survival. In the layered quiet of the forest, light became a treasure. And like all treasures, it was not shared equally. The towering lycopods and ferns at the top drank in most of the sunlight, casting long green shadows across everything below. The lower plants, seedlings, mosses, delicate saplings, lived beneath a canopy so thick, only faint specks of light made it through, like stars behind fog. But those specks were everything. Some plants evolved to grow faster than their neighbors, racing upward before being shaded out. Others adapted to live in low light, patiently waiting in the gloom, surviving on just enough. It wasn't a violent fight, it was a quiet one. A quiet test of endurance, timing, and stillness. And maybe that's the kind of strength, too. The kind that grows when no one is looking. The kind that keeps reaching, even when the world above seems closed. The kind that waits and believes and doesn't give up even in shadow. Because the forest taught this long ago. Sometimes, light doesn't come all at once. But when it does, it finds the ones who never stopped growing. Symbiosis, the hidden web beneath the roots. Above the ground, the forest was green and reaching. But beneath it, there was a network of quiet miracles. The roots of ancient plants didn't grow alone. They were entwined with fungi, forming some of the Earth's earliest mycorrhizal relationships. These fungi, delicate and unseen, helped trees absorb water and minerals from the swampy soil. And in return, the trees fed them sugars made from light. It was a quiet exchange. No glory, no conflict, just two beings keeping each other alive. Deeper still, cyanobacteria in the mud helped fix nitrogen. Algae clung to damp roots. Tiny microbes traded nutrients in slow, patient circles. This forest wasn't just built from towering plants, it was woven from relationships. And maybe that's something you've forgotten, that you don't have to do everything alone. That strength can mean connection, not just resilience. That healing, too, can be shared. You may not see the ones who help you grow. They may never ask for thanks. But somewhere in the soil of your soul, you are being held by kindnesses so small they feel like silence. A forest without giants, when plants ruled the earth. In this ancient time, the forest was not echoing with footsteps. There were no deer, no tigers, no elephants to roam its paths. This was a world ruled almost entirely by plants. There were small creatures, yes, millipedes, primitive insects, and soft-bodied invertebrates. But no large herbivores yet, no predators to shape the land. The trees grew tall not in fear, but in freedom. Their deaths came not from teeth, but from time, storm, and softness. This meant something extraordinary. For once in Earth's history, plants set the rules. They built the air, the soil, the shade. They dictated where water pooled and how much carbon remained in the sky. And maybe that's a story we rarely hear, a story where gentleness leads, where stillness transforms the world, where no roars or claws are needed to create something vast and sacred. So if you've ever felt invisible, if you've ever shaped the world in quiet ways, you're not weak. You're part of a lineage that once grew empires from leaves. Insects, the quiet engineers of the undergrowth. Beneath the leaves, along the roots, and through the fallen trunks, insects stirred. Not the insects we know today, no bees, no butterflies, but early pioneers. Giant millipedes, tiny winged bugs, and delicate scavengers with soft bodies and simple lungs. They crawled through the litter, eating decaying leaves, carrying spores, stirring the soil. Without them, decomposition would have been slower. Without them, nutrients might never have returned to the trees above. They were small, but they mattered. And that, perhaps, is what makes a forest. Not just the tallest plants, but the smallest lives working quietly in shadow, turning death into life again. Some insects lived in the bark, some on the forest floor, some along the edges of shallow pools. And though their bodies were fragile, their presence was profound. Like you, they did not need to be loud to be important. They moved softly. They changed everything. The gap where giants fell, openings for the next beginning. When one of the ancient trees finally fell, its roots loosened by years of rain or broken by its own great weight, it did not mark an end. It marked a beginning. Where once there was shadow, now there was light. Where once there was silence, now there were seeds awakening. The forest, though ancient, knew how to renew itself, not in haste, but in rhythm. These gaps in the canopy were vital. They created space for new generations to rise, for smaller plants to reach toward the sun, for insects to swarm and spores to spread, for life long hidden to step into the light. Even death here was gentle. Even endings made room for breath. So if you've fallen, if something old in you has collapsed, maybe you're not broken. Maybe you're just making space for something new to grow. A forest that waited the wisdom of slow growth. The Carboniferous forest did not rush. It grew inch by inch, layer by layer, ring by patient ring. No one hurried. No season was wasted. Everything had its time, the reaching, the resting, the falling, the returning. And perhaps that's the most sacred truth of all, that growth is not always visible, that becoming takes time, that even in stillness, you are becoming something beautiful. This forest, with all its layered life, stood for millions of years. It held the planet's air, cooled the earth, prepared the way for every forest that followed. And it did so quietly. So tonight, if your life feels slow, if the world asks you to hurry, remember this forest. You are not late. You are just becoming exactly as you were meant to. 3. Climate impact. The great drawdown when forests began to breathe in carbon. The trees had been growing for millions of years. Quietly, patiently, layer by green layer, they rose toward the sky, and without knowing it, they were changing the world. As the vast forests of the Carboniferous spread across the equator, they began to draw in carbon dioxide at an astonishing scale. Through the silent alchemy of photosynthesis, they breathed in CO2 and breathed out oxygen, cooling the planet one leaf at a time. No machines, no plans, just forests living, dying, growing, becoming a force more powerful than volcanoes or oceans. The CO2 levels dropped, slowly but steadily. The air began to thin of carbon. The heat began to soften. And all around the globe, the earth exhaled relief. You see, sometimes healing doesn't come loudly. Sometimes it arrives in gentle repetitions. In every leaf that opens, in every root that holds fast, in every choice to continue. Just like those trees, you don't need to fix everything overnight. You only need to keep breathing and know that even in stillness, you're helping the world become something better. Cooling the earth when green turned the planet blue. As forests drank in carbon, something subtle began to shift. The air cooled, the winds softened. The world, once wrapped in warmth, began to feel its first breath of chill. It was slow, a soft transformation. As CO2 declined, the planet's greenhouse blanket thinned, allowing more heat to slip away into the silence of space. The skies cleared. Rain fell gently but more often, and deep in the southern reaches, where no forest grew, ice began to form. Quiet, blue, and ancient. It was the first whisper of a coming balance. The forest, in its quiet labor, had done something no single storm or mountain could. It had changed the temperature of a planet. But balance, like growth, is delicate. This wasn't just cooling. It was a lesson that small, patient acts, done again and again, can shift the whole world's rhythm. So if you're waiting for change, if you feel small in a world too vast, remember the trees. They didn't shout, they simply grew, and the world turned cool because of it. The oxygen surge, breathing in a world overflowing with air. With carbon drawn from the sky, the forests exhaled something new, oxygen. And not just a little, they filled the air with so much life-giving gas that the world entered its most oxygen-rich era in history. At its peak, over 30% of the atmosphere was oxygen, enough to make fires burn hotter, enough to help insects grow to impossible sizes, enough to make each breath feel like a miracle. But it wasn't just numbers. It was a transformation of how life could be. Creatures moved differently. Cells burned energy faster. The air itself became a cradle for expansion. This breath, this surge of life, came not from machines or miracles, but from forests, from ferns and lycopods and leaves no one would ever see. It came from the quiet. And maybe that's what your healing will look like too. Not all at once, but breath by breath, life returning slowly until one day the world is full of air again. Life in an over-oxygenated world, gifts and dangers of too much air. But even gifts, when abundant, can become delicate. In this oxygen-rich world, the air was not only a blessing, it was also a spark. Fires could start from a single flash. Dry leaves became kindling for blazes that swept the forest floor. The same breath that gave life also made life fragile. And creatures struggled, too. The simple tracheal systems of insects couldn't regulate oxygen intake. Some flourished and grew immense, like the mighty Meganeura with its meter-wide wings. Others faced limits, unable to adapt to air too full, too fast. The world was rich but volatile, lush but precarious. And maybe you've known that feeling, of having so much yet feeling unsteady, of breathing deeply but still holding your chest tight, of growth that's beautiful but hard to carry. The Carboniferous reminds us, even abundance needs balance. Even oxygen given too freely can become a test. So it's okay to pace yourself, to take only the breath you need, and find steadiness again, in your own rhythm. Climate and forest, a two-way conversation. The forests shaped the climate, but the climate shaped the forests too. There was a rhythm, an unspoken conversation, where sky and leaf whispered to each other across time. As CO2 dropped and oxygen rose, the forests expanded. As the forests thickened, they pulled more carbon from the sky. And as the earth cooled, the range of these ancient woodlands changed, responding not with fear, but with adaptation. This was the first time in Earth's history that life changed the climate. Not just the other way around. It was a feedback loop, a delicate dance between root and rain, between soil and sky. And maybe that's the reminder you need tonight, that relationships are not one way, that you affect your world, and it affects you, and that balance comes not from control, but from listening, gently, patiently, again and again, like the forest, like the sky, the quiet shift, prelude to drought and change. But nothing lasts forever. Even forests, even oxygen, even balance. Toward the end of the Carboniferous, the Earth began to shift once more. Continents moved, drawing some lands away from the humid tropics. Rainfall lessened, swamps dried, and the once vast forests began to shrink. It didn't happen overnight, but slowly, steadily, the green began to fade. The conversation between forest and sky grew quieter. The world entered a new chapter, one of dryness, adaptation, and uncertainty. But even this ending held meaning, because endings make room for transformation, for new forms of life, for creatures that could walk farther from water, for evolution to write its next verse. And maybe if something in you is closing now, a chapter, a season, a dream, it's not the end. It's just the earth turning softly again, making space for what comes next. Part 2: Giant Insects. 1. The first giant insects. When the atmosphere was thick with oxygen, and the ground was covered with shade, the smallest creatures became the greatest. Meganeura, the dragonfly with the wings of a raven. When silence ruled the skies, and wings whispered ancient lullabies, long before birds filled the sky, before the flap of bat wings or the roar of pterosaurs, there was Meganeura, a dragonfly, but not the kind you know. With a wingspan of nearly 70 centimeters, it soared like a silent raven above the swampy forests of the Carboniferous. Its wings shimmered in the filtered sunlight, catching golden beams that broke through the canopy. It hunted with grace, not rage, gliding over mossy wetlands, searching for small prey in the stillness. Its eyes, large and compound, saw the world in fractured patterns of movement and light. Its body, slender yet powerful, belonged to a time when air was thick with oxygen, and breathing was effortless. It did not roar, it did not crash, it whispered through the leaves. And maybe tonight, as you lie still with your own breath soft and slow, you can imagine it, this ancient creature, hovering above your dreams like a guardian from another time. Do you hear it? The hush of wings from long ago, telling you, you don't need to be loud to matter. You don't need to be fierce to survive. You can glide softly and still leave echoes. Pulmonoscorpius, the giant scorpion of the swamps. When shadows crawled and silence wore armor. Beneath the canopy, along the soft, damp banks of ancient ponds, something moved with purpose. Pulmonoscorpius, the giant swamp scorpion, was no myth, it was real, and it was enormous. Stretching up to 1 meter in length, this creature didn't crawl in fear. It patrolled its mossy domain like a knight in obsidian armor. Its pincers clicked softly through the underbrush. The stinger arched like a moonrise. But it wasn't aggressive, not always. It waited. It listened. It read the rhythm of the mud and the quiet. This scorpion didn't thrive because it fought more. It thrived because it fit the moment perfectly. In a world without predators bigger than it, where high oxygen gave it power and shadow gave it safety. And maybe you felt like Pulmonoscorpius too, carrying armor you no longer need, surviving by instinct, moving carefully through a world that sometimes forgets how soft you really are inside. Tonight, it's okay to take off the shell, to feel the earth under you, cool and forgiving. The swamp will hold you, just like it held them, other forgotten giants, hidden beasts beneath the leaves. Not all giants leave loud footprints. In the hush of fallen ferns, there lived creatures the size of dreams. Few today remember them, but in their time, they were wonders of the world. The Arthropleura, a millipede stretching up to 2 meters long, slid silently over rotting logs, gentle and herbivorous, a titan with no teeth. The Paleodictyoptera, strange insect ancestors, fluttered with 3 pairs of wings, their mouthparts long like delicate straws. Others, like the Protodonata, soared ahead of dragonflies, testing the limits of flight in a sky rich with oxygen. They didn't roar, they didn't rule. They simply were part of the slow breathing of the Carboniferous world. And maybe that's a comfort, isn't it? That greatness isn't always loud. that some of the most beautiful things leave no voice behind, only impressions in stone and stories in the mud. Tonight, if you feel forgotten, if you wonder whether you matter, know this: some giants lived quietly, and they changed the world anyway. Why so big? The secret hidden in the air. What made the small become grand? It wasn't magic, though it feels like it. It was the air itself. During the Carboniferous, Earth's atmosphere was rich with oxygen, up to 35%, far higher than today. Insects don't breathe like mammals do. They don't have lungs, only a system of tiny tubes called tracheae, which passively deliver air into their bodies. And in a world overflowing with oxygen, their bodies could grow larger than ever before. There were other reasons too: fewer predators, endless damp, rich forests, an arms race of wings and legs and shell. But mostly it was the air, light, invisible and generous. Isn't it strange that something we don't see could change everything? Maybe in your life too. There's something quiet, something you've stopped noticing, but it's been feeding your growth all along. Kindness, a breath, a belief in you even when you don't feel it. Tonight, you don't need to try so hard. Just breathe. Let the invisible carry you the way it carried them. A world without roars, when insects were kings. Before the mammals, before the dinosaurs, there was the silence of wings. No lions prowled, no wolves howled, no footsteps thundered. Instead, the sky shimmered with wings, and the forest floor pulsed with a soft, crawling heartbeat. In this world, insects were the rulers, not in domination, but in number, in presence, in sheer persistence. They pollinated nothing. They built no hives, but they were everywhere, leaf to bark, mud to moss, eating, cleaning, building the base of a world that would one day grow teeth and bone. And perhaps that's the kind of royalty we overlook. The gentle rulers, the ones who keep the world turning without asking for thrones. Tonight, know this: you don't need a crown to matter. You don't need an audience to reign. Like the insects of old, you are part of a deeper rhythm, a quiet kingdom beneath the noise. The vulnerability of greatness, what made giants disappear. Even giants must yield to change. As time passed, the world began to shift. The air thinned, the oxygen dropped, the wet forests shrank as the climate grew dry. And the giants, the great insects of the Carboniferous, began to vanish. Their bodies, so perfectly made for a lush, oxygen-rich earth, couldn't adjust. Their breathing systems couldn't shrink fast enough. They faded, one by one, into the hush of extinction. But this wasn't failure. This was part of the story. Because every greatness has its moment, and every ending makes space for something new. So if you're mourning a change, if something in your life is growing too small to hold you, it's okay to let it go. Even the sky had to change. Even the air had to shift. And even the most wondrous creatures had to make way for what comes next. 2. Ancient insect respiratory systems. When insects breathe not through lungs, but through delicate tubes that run through their bodies, an ancient, simple, yet innovative mechanism. The tracheal system, breathing without lungs. When life whispered instead of gasped, and breath was a thread of light weaving through stillness. Before lungs, before the rise and fall of chests, before sighs or gasps, there was diffusion. Insects didn't breathe as you and I do. They didn't inhale the world or exhale their weight. Instead, they let air find them. Running through their bodies was a network of delicate tubes called tracheae, tiny tunnels that led from the outside world straight to their cells. No blood needed to carry oxygen. No lungs, no diaphragm. just spiracles along their sides, quiet openings that welcomed air like open windows on a gentle evening. Oxygen didn't rush. It drifted. It diffused softly, passively, like sleep moving through the body. And in an atmosphere rich with oxygen, this was enough. More than enough. It was elegance in simplicity. Can you feel the poetry of that? That life, in its early chapters, didn't demand effort to survive. That breath wasn't a struggle. It was a gift, gentle, constant, unasked for. Maybe that's something you need to hear tonight. That you don't have to fight for every breath. That it's okay to be still, to let the world come to you, to let oxygen and grace find their way in, just like it did for the earliest creatures of the forest. Oxygen-rich atmosphere, breathing in a lush world. Once upon an air so rich, life grew larger, faster, and freer than ever before. During the Carboniferous, the Earth's breath was deep and generous. Oxygen levels rose to nearly 35% of the atmosphere, far more than today's 21%. It wasn't just a number, it was a transformation. You see, insects rely on a passive respiratory system. Air enters through tiny spiracles and travels down a branching web of tracheae. This system is beautifully efficient, but only when oxygen is abundant. In a high-oxygen world, even the smallest breath could nourish the farthest cell. That's why insects could grow so enormous. Gigantic dragonflies soared. Towering millipedes wandered the forest floor. Even scorpions stretched longer than your arm. But the effect went deeper. More oxygen meant more energy, faster muscle contractions, heightened alertness, sharper movement. Every flap of a wing, every scurry through the ferns was supercharged. The forest was alive, not just with life, but with vitality. And you, listening now, have you ever felt like you're stuck in low air? Like every step costs too much? Imagine, just for a moment, being in a world where breath flows freely, where your body feels supported, where effort melts into ease. That's what this era gave to insects. And maybe, tonight, it's what the memory of that air can give to you. A reminder that sometimes, the right environment unlocks the strength already within you. Passive airflow, a breath without effort. No lungs, no pull, just presence, just breath. Imagine a body that never breathes the way we do. No inhale, no exhale. Instead, a system that lets air drift in quietly, without effort, without noise. This was how insects survived. Air slipped in through spiracles, winding through the narrow branches of tracheae, reaching each cell like a river finding its own course. No muscles pulled it in, no pump pushed it out. It simply moved, carried by difference, by diffusion. This kind of breathing only works when the world is kind, when oxygen is rich and nothing forces the body to fight for air. And during the Carboniferous, the world was kind. Warm, moist, oxygen-filled. The perfect place for this soft breathing to thrive. There's something tender in that, isn't there? That life doesn't always need effort to grow. That there are times and places where just being is enough. Maybe tonight you need that kind of reminder. That stillness isn't laziness. That letting go isn't failure. Sometimes the most profound survival is this, to let the breath come to you. Vulnerability in a changing world. When air became scarce, what once gave life began to fade. The Carboniferous didn't last forever. As time flowed on, the Earth's atmosphere shifted. Oxygen levels dropped. The climate grew drier. Forests pulled back. And for the insects whose lives depended on passive breath, the world became harder to survive. Their bodies, once so perfectly adapted, now struggled to draw enough air through shrinking spiracles and stiffening tubes. They couldn't grow as large anymore. Some couldn't survive at all. And isn't that how change often feels? Not violent, not sudden, just thinner air. Just a quiet realization that the old ways no longer work. But here's what evolution teaches us. Vulnerability is not weakness. It's a signal, a whisper, a chance to adapt, to soften, to try another way. So if you're finding it hard to breathe lately, not just air, but life, it's okay. Even the giants had to let go. And sometimes shrinking is part of the next chapter. Evolutionary limits. Why insects never grew that big again. The air changed. The size stayed small. The world moved on. Long after the Carboniferous, the Earth saw mighty beasts, dinosaurs, mammals, even birds. But insects, they never reached their ancient sizes again. Why? Because their breathing system, though elegant, has limits. The tracheal tubes can only carry air so far without help. In lower oxygen conditions, their design holds them back. Evolution didn't give insects lungs. It didn't give them a new way to breathe. So they stayed small, not by choice, but by biology. And yet, they're still here. Smaller, yes, but everywhere. Buzzing, crawling, pollinating, transforming, in every garden, every forest, every field. They remind us that success isn't always size. That adaptation isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's quiet persistence. A life remade not by growing bigger, but by growing wiser. Maybe you've had to shrink something too. A dream, a plan, a version of yourself. But here you are, still breathing, still becoming. And that is its own kind of greatness. Lessons from stillness, what ancient breathing teaches us. Not every breath must be loud. Not every survival must roar. There is a grace in how insects once breathed. Not out of strength, but alignment. They didn't demand oxygen. They existed in a world that offered it freely. Their survival was not in force, but in fit. They matched their environment. They trusted its rhythms. And when the world changed, some left. But others stayed, adapted, evolved. Smaller, simpler, but still part of the song. Tonight, let that be your lullaby. That the way forward may not be loud or heroic. It might be soft like a breath. It might be small like a spiracle. But it will carry you. And if you close your eyes now and listen carefully, perhaps you'll feel that ancient breath still echoing inside you. A quiet reminder that being alive is enough. 3. Ecological role of giant insect. Leaf eaters of the forest, the silent harvesters. Long before cows grazed on grass or deer nibbled on leaves, the forests of the Carboniferous were already being shaped, not by hooves or jaws, but by jaws of chitin, small and ancient. The first leaf eaters were insects, and they harvested the green world with delicacy and purpose. Some, like the Paleodictyoptera, used long straw-like mouthparts to pierce soft plant tissues. Others chewed steadily through the feathered fronds of giant ferns, lycopods, and horsetails. Every bite they took was part of an ancient dance, not destruction but renewal. Their feeding shaped the forest. Plants evolved tougher stems, bitter saps, and complex branching to protect themselves. In turn, insects diversified, adapting to overcome each new plant defense. It was coevolution, unfolding leaf by leaf. And maybe, dear listener, you know that feeling too of adapting again and again, not to win, but simply to keep growing. There is no war here, only the rhythm of give and take wound into the roots of the earth. So tonight, As you lie still and breathe like the trees once did, know this: even the smallest bites, the quietest changes, can shape the forest of your life. Pollinators before flowers, the pre-flower messengers. Now, you may be wondering, were there flowers back then? Not quite. In the Carboniferous world, there were no blossoms yet. No petals, no nectar, no bees humming between blooms. But even in this flowerless forest, there were whispers of connection between insect and plant. Some Contrang wandered between the spore-bearing plants, tree-like ferns, lycopods, and horsetails, perhaps drawn by scents or moisture, unknowingly carrying pollen-like spores from one plant to another. It wasn't yet pollination as we know it, but it was the beginning of a bond, a soft rehearsal for a dance that would one day paint the world with blossoms. And isn't that how many relationships start? Not in full bloom, but in gentle, unspoken steps. Sometimes we are part of something bigger long before we realize it. So if you feel your life hasn't fully flowered yet, that's okay. You might just be in the early pages, a quiet messenger, wandering through ferns, planting seeds for forests and futures you cannot yet see. Decomposers and soil builders, keepers of the ground. Let's now lower our gaze down to the forest floor, where things fall, fade, and transform. When ancient trees dropped their leaves, when giant dragonflies perished, when mosses browned and wilted in the misty air, they didn't simply disappear. There, in the dark hush beneath the trees, Contrang worked. Millipedes, beetle-like creatures, soft-bodied recyclers, they ate decay. They broke it down into soil, rich and damp, ready to feed the next generation of roots. These were the earth keepers, unseen and unsung. And tonight, if you're feeling like something in you has fallen or failed, remember this: in the world's deepest ecosystems, what dies is never wasted. It becomes nourishment. It becomes new ground. Your pain, your loss, your quiet seasons, they are not endings. They are compost for something still growing. The first forest food web weaving the web of life. Step back now and look wider. Can you see it? The forest wasn't just trees and ferns. It was a woven web, every thread a life, every knot a connection. Contrang were both eaters and eaten. They munched leaves, fed fungi, scattered spores, and in turn they became food for amphibians, early reptiles, and even fish that slithered into swampy shallows. This was the first forest food web, fragile yet brilliant, spun from light and leaf, breath and hunger. And you, dear listener, you are part of a web too. Maybe it feels invisible sometimes. Maybe you wonder if anyone notices the role you play. But oh, they do. Every kindness, every struggle, every quiet task feeds something, supports someone, keeps the whole forest alive. Balance keepers, guardians of growth and decay. Not too much life, not too much death. That was the task of the insects. Without them, leaves would pile endlessly, rot unchecked. New plants would struggle beneath the weight of the old. But with them, with their constant, quiet labor, the forest stayed in balance. They cleared space. They opened light. They carried decay away so that new life could root and rise. Perhaps you, too, are someone who clears space. Not always seen, rarely thanked, but essential to others, to systems, to peace. Take heart. The forest needs its quiet guardians. And tonight, maybe it whispers back, "Thank you for all you do even when no one sees." Echoes into the future, their legacy lives on. Though the Carboniferous faded, though many of its giants vanished, the roles these insects played, they did not. Even now, modern insects carry leaves in their jaws. They till soil with their legs. They turn decay into rebirth. They are living echoes, the inheritance of a time when ferns reached the sky and dragonflies sang the wind. And maybe you carry something ancient too, a strength passed down, a role no one else can fill, a whisper from the deep time of earth, folded into your breath. Sleep now, gentle listener. Let the insects of long ago tuck you in, tiny, tireless builders, whose legacy still holds up the forest around you. Part 3, the first primitive reptiles. 1. The appearance of primitive reptiles. The first to walk away from water, reptiles emerge. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine a quiet forest 320 million years ago. The air is warm, the ferns are tall, and the ground beneath your feet is soft with ancient moss. By a shaded pool, a creature stirs. But tonight, it does not return to the water. It steps away from the pond's edge and into something new. This is Hylonomus, one of the very first true reptiles, small, slender, with sharp little toes made for gripping dry bark. Unlike the amphibians before it, it doesn't need to crawl back to the wetlands to lay its eggs. Its body holds the blueprint of a quiet revolution, life unchained from water. You see, this was a turning point. Reptiles were not just new animals, they were a new idea. They were among the first to claim the dry world as home, to carry life forward on land, fully and freely. And perhaps, dear dreamer, you've known a moment like this too. A step away from something you once needed, a gentle goodbye to an old safety, and the beginning of something more spacious, more self-led. Evolution isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a soft footfall on dry ground, a quiet promise that you can grow beyond the place that first held you. The amniotic egg, a revolutionary gift. Imagine this, a tiny, perfect world wrapped in a shell. Inside it, water, salts, nutrients, and protection. Everything needed to grow, wrapped safely within. This is the amniotic egg, perhaps one of the most important inventions in the history of life. With this humble miracle, reptiles no longer had to return to the pond to reproduce. They carried their own private ocean, a self-contained cradle of life. No longer tied to water, they could travel farther, climb higher, dig deeper. Forests, plains, and dry hilltops opened before them. They became pioneers of possibility. Isn't that beautiful? That freedom begins when we carry what nurtures us inside. You, too, may carry something tender, a hope, a dream, a truth, and like the ancient reptiles, you can protect it, grow it, and take it anywhere. You don't need perfect conditions. You just need to believe in what you carry. Tonight, rest with the quiet wonder of this gift, that something so small, so still, can reshape the world, and maybe even your world, leaving the amphibians behind a quiet separation. Not all change comes with thunder. Some happens gently, in a hushed parting, a gradual drift. Long ago, the early reptiles slowly turned away from their amphibian cousins. Not in anger, not in haste, just a natural pulling apart. Amphibians, soft-skinned and moist, still needed the comfort of water to live and to lay. But reptiles, with their dry, scaled skin, could bask on rocks and burrow into dry leaves. Their eggs survived under fallen logs, not in pond shallows. This was the moment when life divided. Some stayed near the water, others reached farther inland, both following different destinies. And maybe you know that feeling too, when you outgrow something gently without blame, when your path forks away from someone you once loved walking beside. It's okay. Evolution teaches us that separation is not failure. Sometimes, it's how new worlds begin. So tonight, take a breath for every goodbye that felt quiet, but true, like the first reptiles stepping into solitude. You are not lost. You are just arriving elsewhere. Life finds new ground, ecological expansion. With water no longer a chain around their ankles, reptiles explored. They stepped into open plains, where the sun warmed stones and shadows stretched far. They wandered beneath strange skies, into lands no lizard had ever seen. Where amphibians faded, reptiles flourished. They took up residence in new ecological niches. Dry woods, windswept rocks, parched clearings. They ate insects, seeds, even each other, and in doing so wove themselves into new food webs. They were no longer guests of the swamp. They were architects of the uplands. And maybe that's what courage looks like. Not loud conquest, but quiet presence in places you once thought you didn't belong. You are not out of place. You are expanding into dry spaces, into high places, into dreams you haven't dared dwell in before. Let the reptiles show you, you too can belong somewhere new. Fossils and footprints, traces of early reptiles. Though their skin has long crumbled, and their eyes no longer blink at the sun, we still know they were here. Their bones sleep in stone. Tiny skulls, delicate ribs, curled tails locked in the grip of time. Hylonomus, Captorinus, Westlothiana. Names whispered like fairy tale heroes of the deep past. Sometimes even their footprints remain, pressed into ancient mud now turned to rock. A small foot, a light step, a direction chosen. And that's how we remember them, not with glory or grandness, but with evidence of motion. You don't need to roar to leave a mark. You don't need to conquer to be remembered. Sometimes all that matters is that you stepped forward, even once, even quietly, and that step might echo for millions of years. A new kind of freedom and its quiet strength. The arrival of reptiles brought something rare. Freedom without violence, strength without spectacle. No longer dependent on the tides, they lived at their own pace. They didn't chase the storm, they rested beneath the sun. They didn't need to fight for every breath. They adapted to breathe better. This was quiet power, the kind that builds foundations, not headlines. And maybe you have that power too. The kind that doesn't always get praised, but holds up everything around it. Tonight, breathe gently. You don't need to be flashy to matter. You are a new kind of freedom, and the world is better because you exist. 2. Adapt to dry environments. Skin like armor, the gift of dry, scaled protection. Can you imagine walking beneath a blazing carboniferous sun, with no water in sight, and not feeling fear? That's what early reptiles did. They evolved a miracle, skin that did not thirst. Unlike their amphibian cousins, who needed soft, moist skin to breathe and survive, reptiles developed dry, keratinized scales, each one like a tiny shield. This was not just decoration, it was defense, kept precious moisture inside, and the harshness of the dry world out. And so they wandered freely across hot stones, dry leaves, and sunlit branches, untouched by the fears that once chained their ancestors to the water's edge. Maybe, dear listener, you felt the sting of exposure too. The fear of becoming dry, brittle, worn down by life. But what if, like them, you are growing a skin of quiet strength? Not to harden your heart, but to hold in your softness, to carry your tenderness safely through the droughts. You are not breaking. You are becoming resilient. Rest now under the canopy of ancient trees. Let their shadows remind you, even in dry places, life can flourish if it learns how to hold on gently to its own waters. Breathing the air, lungs made for the open sky. In the stillness of the carboniferous uplands, far from the bubbling ponds and misty swamps, early reptiles breathed in a different kind of freedom. They no longer depended on their skin to absorb oxygen, no longer needed to be wet to survive. Instead, they carried inside them a pair of well-developed lungs, balloons of life that could draw breath even in the driest breeze. This change seems small, doesn't it? Just a shift in how air is taken in. But it meant everything. Now they could climb higher, burrow deeper, explore further, unchained from the damp, liberated from the fear of drying out. And maybe you too have learned a new way to breathe, after heartbreak, after hardship, after change. Maybe your breath feels more your own now, not pulled from others, but drawn gently from within. Tonight, as you rest, breathe deeply and know, each quiet inhale is a celebration of all you've adapted to. All the dry places you've crossed, all the new skies you've learned to live under. You're still breathing, still evolving, still here, the earthbound cradle laying life on land. In the heart of the forest, beneath layers of leaves, a quiet miracle rested, an egg not in water but nestled into soil. This was the amniotic egg, perfected and protected. No longer jelly-like, no longer exposed to predators or evaporation. It held its own world within water, cushion, breath. It meant that reptile mothers could hide life on land, beneath moss, inside tree hollows, under warm stones. They didn't need ponds. They carried the ocean inside the shell. This changed everything. It allowed reptiles to reproduce anywhere, to spread wide into new terrains without looking back. And maybe that's your gift too. You don't need perfect conditions. You don't need everyone's approval or the right timing or even certainty. Sometimes you just need to trust what you carry inside. Tonight, wrap your dreams like that ancient egg, in quiet safety, in still belief. Let them grow within you. Let them hatch when they're ready. Because what you hold could one day reshape your entire world. Thirstless wanderers, masters of dry land. No longer tethered to water, the early reptiles became wanderers. They climbed dry ridges, crossed windswept clearings, settled under the open sky. And unlike those who needed streams and shade, they had learned to preserve their moisture, excreting uric acid instead of water-heavy waste, holding on to every drop like a treasure. With this, they thrived in places others couldn't endure. They weren't the fastest, not the fiercest, but they were adaptable, resilient, silent masters of the heat and the dust. Perhaps you too have walked through dry seasons, emotionally, spiritually, maybe even physically, and you've survived not by abundance, but by wisdom, knowing what to keep, what to let go, how to move gently through drought. Tonight, honor your endurance. You are a desert flower. You are ancient strength wrapped in quiet skin. You are proof that life can bloom where no water flows. The quiet advantage outlasting the rivals. While amphibians still hugged the wetlands, reptiles spread out into the world like a slow, steady wave. They faced less competition, more food, more space, because they could go where others could not. It wasn't a violent takeover. There was no war, only a calm, persistent presence, and a deep compatibility with the changing earth. That was their true advantage. Adaptation, not aggression. And maybe that's your strength too. You don't have to outshine anyone. You just have to keep showing up. Keep growing in your own way, at your own pace, in your own soil. There's room for you. There always has been. Just like the reptiles found theirs, not through dominance, but through deep and quiet understanding of what the world was becoming. Adaptation is wisdom, a soft evolution. Every scale, every egg, every breath was not a rebellion against the world, but a conversation with it. The early reptiles didn't fight the dryness. They listened to it. They didn't resist change. They became part of it. This is what true adaptation is. Not escape, but intimacy with the landscape. And maybe tonight that's all you need, to stop resisting what is, and instead, curl into it gently, learn its rhythm, answer it with your own. Because life does not demand perfection, only presence. And when we meet the world, dry, imperfect, uncertain, with openness and quiet strength, we evolve, just like the reptiles, just like you. 3. The evolutionary role of primitive reptiles. The first architects, foundations of modern reptiles. Beneath the canopy of deep time, a quiet lineage was being written scale by scale, breath by breath. The early reptiles, modest in form and number, were never meant to dazzle. But what they carried inside them was powerful. The blueprint for nearly all land-dwelling vertebrates to come. Their amniotic eggs became the model for birds. Their posture, breathing systems, and toughened skin would echo through crocodiles, lizards, snakes, and even mammals like us. Without them, there would be no feathered wings slicing the sky, no paws curling beneath firelight. It all began with these humble creatures, stepping slowly into dry earth, leaving footprints not just in mud, but in destiny. And perhaps that's something to remember on nights when you feel small, that the things you build in silence, the paths you walk with no applause, may one day become the foundation for someone else's flight. You are part of something ancient and ongoing, a lineage not of noise but of meaning. So close your eyes and thank your breath for being the echo of a breath once drawn by a quiet reptile. Under a carboniferous sky, ecosystems rewritten, the rise of reptile-led worlds. As reptiles stepped confidently into the dry realms, they didn't just survive, they reshaped the world around them. With each scale and steady breath, they rewrote the balance of ancient ecosystems. While amphibians still clung to the safety of swamps and streams, reptiles ventured farther, into open forests, dry clearings, and dusty plains. There, they began to dominate new niches, becoming herbivores, insect hunters, and small predators. Not in conquest, but in quiet adaptation. And this changed everything. Predators had to adapt to chase them. Plants evolved thicker bark or toxins to resist grazing. Even insects shifted their habits in response. The forest didn't just host reptiles, it began to bend around them. And perhaps, dear listener, you too have entered spaces not built for you. Perhaps you've had to carve your own path, not to conquer, but to live fully, honestly, on your terms. Let tonight remind you, your presence reshapes the world. By simply being, by daring to grow where you were told not to, you create space for others to breathe, just like the reptiles once did. On sunlit clearings millions of years ago, from forest floor to global stage, expansion across the continents. The Earth was not a single stage, but many lands, many climates, many challenges. Yet these early reptiles, so quiet, so seemingly ordinary, became the first vertebrates to explore every corner of the ancient supercontinent. They crossed dry basins, climbed rocky uplands, settled in sun-scorched valleys far from any stream, and with each step, they diversified. Some became sleek runners, others armored diggers. A few would grow large, lumbering, and powerful. Each environment shaped them in return, offering whispers of "adapt this way," and they listened. Can you feel the resonance in your own life? Every place you've ever landed, every change you've weathered, has sculpted you into something richer, wiser, more capable of facing the unknown. Like the reptiles, you may not have chosen the path, but you've walked it, and in doing so, you've become more than you were. Sleep now, little wanderer. The world is wide, but you carry its memory in your bones. A ripple through time, preparing for mammals and birds. What started in the hush of ancient forests didn't end there. From the amniotic egg, from the dry-scaled skin, from the lungs that drank air like wine, came the building blocks not only of reptiles, but of birds and mammals too. The first whisper of a heartbeat that would one day sing. The first egg that could rest beneath dry leaves and still hold a promise. Without early reptiles, there would be no wings soaring at dawn, no warm fur curled beside us by night. Know us. Their quiet victories paved the way for futures they would never see. And maybe, just maybe, your own choices echo that same legacy. The courage to adapt, to survive without applause, to trust the quiet path. These things ripple forward, too. Tonight, imagine this. You are not alone in the dark. You are one of many in a great unfolding. Your presence is part of something ancient, something still becoming, and somewhere in the hush, an egg waits to hatch. Resilience woven into evolution, a legacy of survival. They were not the largest, not the fastest, not the fiercest, but they endured. That's the magic of the early reptiles. They wove their resilience not through dominance, but through understanding. They didn't resist change. They danced with it, grew with it, became one with it. Their bodies whispered, "What does this place ask of me?" And they answered with quiet strength. Perhaps that's something you've done too. Learning how to bend without breaking, how to soften without losing shape. This resilience isn't loud. It doesn't shout. It whispers. And in that whisper is the voice of survival. So as you drift to sleep, let your breath fall in rhythm with theirs. Slow, steady, unshaken. You are part of the same inheritance. A survivor wrapped in quiet grace. A quiet beginning and a grand inheritance. It began not with thunder, but with footsteps soft on dry leaf litter. Not with roars, but with the beating of small, sure hearts. And from that humble beginning, a great inheritance flowed. Every sparrow's flight, every fox's yawn, every moment of life lived fully on land, traced its origin to those early reptiles. This was no accident. It was evolution's lullaby, sung gently over millions of years. And now, tonight, it hums beneath your skin too. Can you feel it? The echo of ancient courage, the whisper of transformation, the warmth of something older than fear, carried gently in your breath. Sleep now, little traveler. You are made of stories deeper than bones, and brighter than stars, and the forest remembers you. Part 4. Carboniferous climate
As
and
forests
geology.
subsided,
One early
land
wet climates,
rose,
a world
shaping the
drenched in
planet.
rain, the first breath of a forested earth. Close your eyes for a moment. Can you hear it? The soft whisper of rain falling on fern leaves, the gentle rhythm of droplets dancing on ancient soil. This was the song of the early Carboniferous, a world wrapped in moisture, shrouded in clouds, kissed endlessly by rain. Back then, the continents gathered into lush lowlands, bathed in equatorial warmth. The air was thick with water vapor, and storms rolled in like slow lullabies, blanketing the land in near-constant rain. This wasn't the chaos of thunderstorms, but a steady, life-giving hush, a world designed for green, and green it became. Rains nourished vast wetlands and sluggish rivers. Soils stayed damp year-round. Seeds found no season of thirst. And from this perfect cradle, the first true forests awakened. Towering lycopods reached skyward. Giant horsetails and tree ferns rose like cathedral pillars, catching light where they could. Insects buzzed among the stems. Amphibians rested in puddles beneath. The planet, once barren, was now a living sponge, soaking in carbon dioxide, exhaling new air. Maybe you've lived through long seasons of rain, emotional, uncertain, relentless. But even endless rain carries gifts. It nourishes unseen roots, it softens hard ground, prepares the soul for growth. So tonight, listen gently to that ancient rain. It's still falling in memory, in breath, in the quiet places of your own becoming. You are not alone in the storm. You are a forest waiting to bloom. Forests unleashed, where green took hold. Dear listener, imagine waking up in a world where green is everywhere, where every horizon is softened by leaves, and the ground beneath you is thick with moss and roots and memory. That's how the Carboniferous forests began. The constant rainfall created a haven of endless growth. No dry season, no cold snap, only warmth and moisture, perfect for plants to flourish. Lycopods, once small creeping plants, rose as giants. Ferns unrolled like ancient scrolls. Tree-like horsetails stood tall in the fog like silent watchers of time. Together, they wove the first true forests of Earth. Not scattered trees, but a vast, breathing organism. Canopies formed above, shading the world below. Leaves reached for the filtered light, each one a tiny miracle of design. And beneath them, a new silence, cool, damp, fertile, a sanctuary where insects, amphibians, and whispers of future life gathered to rest, to feed, to begin again. You see, just like you, the earth thrived when given the right conditions, not forced, not rushed, simply supported. Maybe you, too, are waiting for your season of rain. Maybe your growth is slow, hidden in the roots. That's okay. Tonight, know this: even the mightiest forest began as a quiet seed beneath the gentle fall of rain. And just like the earth did then, you are becoming something beautiful. Living soils, the silent web beneath our feet. Beneath the emerald crown of the Carboniferous forest lay something just as vital. The soil, alive and humming with unseen magic. Roots stretched through it like fingers searching for connection. Fungi wove intricate networks, passing nutrients from tree to tree like whispers of kindness. Bacteria broke down fallen leaves, turning decay into nourishment. This wasn't just dirt. It was memory, a living library of cycles and transformations. And as rain soaked deep into the earth, it carried with it the stories of ancient clouds, of distant mountains, of time slowed into stone. With each droplet, the land grew wiser. The soil held the forest steady, anchoring massive trunks even through storms. It locked away carbon, slowly shaping what would one day become coal. And it welcomed every life form that needed a place to begin, from the tiniest worm to the boldest seed. You might not think much of soil, but like the quiet parts of you, your inner strength, your hidden hopes, it holds everything together. So tonight, give thanks for the ground you stand on, for the soft places where healing begins, for the unseen webs of care that hold you up, even when you feel like falling. Sleep now, child of earth. You are rooted in something deeper than you know. Rivers and swamps in harmony, the gentle pulse of a wet world. Come a little closer, dear dreamer. Can you picture it? A winding river flows not with haste, but with grace, weaving through lush forests like a silver thread sewn into a green tapestry. Along its banks, the land sighs softly, forming swamps so wide and still they seem to hold time itself. This was the Carboniferous, an era when rivers and wetlands didn't fight nature, they danced with it. Rain fell from misty skies, feeding streams that overflowed gently into the lowlands. These swamps became cradles of life, rich in decaying leaves, fertile mud, and ancient breath. Plant matter, layer by layer, sank into this watery silence. Over millions of years, it would become coal, a black diary of green days long gone. But in their own time, these wetlands were bustling. Dragonflies the size of falcons hovered above. Amphibians slid quietly into the still water. Everything moved slowly, patiently, like the earth was learning how to hold space for life. Maybe you've had your own slow season, moments where you felt like nothing moved, like everything was just still. But stillness isn't stagnation, it's preparation. It's where transformation begins, deep in the mud, beneath the noise. So let the memory of ancient swamps cradle you tonight. Let the river inside you flow calmly, knowing it's carving something beautiful in its own time. Carbon capture, when trees silently changed the world. Breathe in, now exhale, slowly. That simple act, drawing air into your lungs, is possible in part because of what forests did over 300 million years ago. You see, the trees of the Carboniferous didn't just grow tall. They became the Earth's quiet alchemists. As they photosynthesized, they pulled carbon dioxide from the air in massive amounts. They used it to build trunks, roots, leaves. And when those plants died, they fell into swampy waters where they couldn't fully decay. Instead, layer after layer of carbon-rich plant matter was buried, locking the carbon deep underground, eventually becoming coal. This wasn't just a geological process. It was planetary rebalancing. The CO2 levels dropped dramatically, and for the first time, Earth cooled. There was no ceremony, no fanfare, just a forest, quietly saving the world. Sometimes we forget that quiet effort can bring lasting change. That what you release from your life, your exhaustion, your pain, your old stories, might one day become the soil for something new. So as you lie here tonight, remember, there is healing in letting go. There is power in silent transformation. And somewhere, deep in Earth's memory, your breath joins with the breath of a billion ancient trees. A breathable world, the first deep inhale of life. And then, something extraordinary happened. With all the carbon drawn downward, something else rose upward. Oxygen. So much oxygen that the air became richer than ever before. Thicker, cleaner, more invigorating. It filled the forests. It drifted across oceans. It wrapped the earth in an invisible embrace. This wasn't just a new atmosphere. It was a turning point for life. Insects grew massive, with bodies finally able to absorb enough air. Amphibians breathed easier. And for the first time, the land was not just habitable. It was full of potential. This was the gift of the Carboniferous rains, of the trees that drank carbon and gave back life. And as you breathe in now, know that every inhale is part of that ancient inheritance. You are not separate from this planet. You are made of its stories, its air, its transformations. So take one more breath slowly. Let it fill you. Let it remind you you are part of a world still becoming, still breathing, still full of hope. 2. When the rain stops, late cyclic dry climate, the sky that forgot to cry. There was a time when the sky above Earth wept freely, and the world beneath it bloomed in reply. But seasons changed, not in days or months, but across millennia. Continents slowly drifted, inch by inch, away from the warm equator. And like a tired heart running out of tears, the sky began to dry. No longer did mist cling to every leaf. No longer did rain murmur on the forest floor. The gentle rhythm of endless rainfall faded, replaced by long silences, dry winds, and skies that forgot how to cry. The great Carboniferous rainforests began to feel the shift. The once lush air turned thin, the clouds pulled away, and the earth exhaled dust instead of steam. This wasn't a catastrophe, not yet. It was a quiet unraveling, a slow turning of a chapter. And sometimes we feel that too, don't we? Those seasons in life where things stop flowing, where what once nourished us no longer arrives so easily, where we feel the sky grow distant. But let me remind you, sweet soul, not every ending is a punishment. Some are simply passages, doors to new ways of being. Dryness is not the absence of life. It's the invitation to deepen roots. So rest now, in the hush of a changing sky. Something new is coming, and you, just like the earth, will learn how to thrive in it. The withering of swamps, when the green began to shrink. Let's take a quiet step deeper now. The swamps, those dreamy, mist-soaked forests we visited earlier, began to falter. As the rain slowed and the skies dried, the wetlands, once vast and endless, began to shrink like old memories. The soggy ground hardened, the soft beds of peat cracked under the sun, and the once towering lycopods began to fall silent. Without constant water, they could no longer thrive. The great green sponges of the earth, which once soaked up carbon and cradled dragonflies, began to disappear. Imagine walking through your favorite place, only to feel it slowly vanish, day by day. That's what life on Earth experienced. A gentle retreat, a fading song, and yet, even in this loss, something stirred. Because nature, like you, is remarkably resilient. Even when one chapter closes, another begins, often quietly, beneath the surface. So if you felt things slipping away in your own life, dreams drying, comfort fading, know that you are not breaking. You are changing landscapes just like the earth once did. Tonight, let yourself grieve the swamps, and then feel what comes after, the rise of drylands, new grounds for becoming. In the empty spaces left behind by the shrinking swamps, something unexpected began to bloom. Drylands, wider, flatter, drier stretches of land, once drowned in water, now kissed by sun. At first, they seemed lifeless, too harsh, too bare. But slowly, tenderly, life adapted. Hardier plants took root. Ferns gave way to seed-bearing plants, tough enough to withstand drought. The soft symphony of wet forests became the whisper of grasses and wind. Animals, too, had to shift. Creatures that once relied on water to birth and breathe had to change or fade. And some did change. Reptiles, with their leathery eggs and lungs made for dry air, began to explore these new lands with quiet confidence. Sometimes, when everything you know falls away, you're offered something new, a new way to live, to breathe, to hope. It may be harder ground, but it's ground where new strength is born. So tonight, if you feel like life has taken you to a dry, unfamiliar place, pause here and remember, the drylands are not the end. They are your new beginning. Life adapts, always shaping new ecologies. And oh, how life adapted. Reptiles stepped forward into the changing world, not as conquerors but as quiet survivors. No longer tied to water for reproduction, they laid eggs on land. Their skin, tougher and drier, protected them under the harsher sun. Creeping through dry ferns and rockier soil, they found niches, tiny homes in a land no longer ruled by rain. Insects, once giants of the oxygen-rich swamp, began to shrink as the air thinned. The very atmosphere shifted. What once gave breath to titans now called for smaller, subtler lives. But that's what ecosystems do. They reshape, rebalance, and restart. The food web changed. Predators became smaller, quicker. Herbivores searched for tougher leaves. Decomposers worked with drier, leaner soil. It was messy, imperfect, and deeply, beautifully alive. Dear listener, you too may be adapting to loss, to new roles, to unexpected versions of yourself. And though it may feel clumsy now, remember, every thriving being once stumbled into a new world. Tonight, let yourself stumble, let yourself change, and let yourself be proud of how quietly, steadily you keep going. The fall of breath when the air began to thin. One last shift, dear dreamer, with forests disappearing and plants no longer covering the earth so densely, photosynthesis slowed, and with it oxygen levels fell. The rich, airy breath of the Carboniferous began to fade. The skies still looked blue, but the air, it grew heavier, thinner, less forgiving. Large insects could no longer survive. Lungs had to work harder. The atmosphere became a mirror, reflecting how fragile life truly is. And yet, life did not stop. It simply adjusted its rhythm, slowed its breath, learned how to live with less. So if you, tonight, feel like it's getting harder to breathe, in your heart, in your mind, know this, you are not alone. You are not weak. You are simply living through a thinner sky. And even under that sky, your life still matters. Let this thought carry you now. You are resilient. You are evolving. And like the earth, you are still here. 3. Geological activity. The rising of the Hercynian Mountains when the earth reached for the sky. Once upon an ancient twilight, long before cities rose or oceans found their final shape, the land beneath your sleeping body began to rise. It didn't shout. It didn't quake in fury. Instead, the earth pressed quietly against itself. Laurussia and Gondwana, two ancient continental plates, drifted toward one another, and when they finally met, the ground folded. That folding birthed the Hercynian Mountains, also called the Variscan Belt, a range that once curved like a sleeping dragon across parts of what we now call Europe. From Spain to Poland, rocks that had slumbered deep below were lifted into the sky, as if the planet itself needed to breathe deeper. This great uplift marked the end of the Carboniferous era's swampy stillness. Rainforests fractured, river systems rerouted, shadows shifted. But friend, don't fear this change. The rising of mountains is not destruction. It is a kind of becoming. We too fold and rise. Life presses upon us from all directions, And sometimes, quietly like stone, we grow taller beneath the weight. These Hercynian peaks stood for eons. And though many have worn away with time, their story remains written in stone, not as violence, but as evidence that something old can become something new. So if tonight your life feels like it's being pushed and pulled, let this mountain tale hold you. You're not crumbling, you're being reshaped, and even in the quietest dark, you are rising, the sinking of swamps when the forests fell into memory. Now, dear dreamer, close your eyes and imagine this. The same swamps we once wandered through together, lush, deep, breathing mist, began to sink, not violently, not all at once, but like a memory receding, gentle and sorrowful. As mountain ranges rose far away, they tugged at the fabric of the land. The forest floor buckled, and pockets of earth gave way. Low-lying wetlands collapsed into themselves, creating deep basins and hollows that slowly filled with water, then mud, then time. The towering trees fell silently into those depressions. Layer upon layer, leaf upon branch, bark upon root, each pressed into the soil by the weight of centuries. There, beneath the surface, life did not end, it transformed. And this is where coal was born, not from fire, but from patience, from pressure, from the long embrace of Earth's warmth and time's hush. You may be wondering, why do we speak of sinking forests when you came here for healing? Because, dear listener, this too is your story. There are parts of you, dreams, moments, even whole versions of yourself, that may have sunk beneath life's shifting ground. And you've mourned them, but what if they are not lost? What if they're simply becoming coal, waiting to warm your future in ways you cannot yet imagine? Tonight, rest in that knowing. Nothing beautiful is ever truly gone. It only changes form. Stratigraphic echoes, Earth's layers remember. Let us now lie down gently, as if on the shoulder of the earth herself. Beneath us lie pages of stone, layer upon layer of history pressed into the crust. Each one tells a story, not in words but in whispers, of forests, floods, insects, fire, and silence. Geologists call them strata, sedimentary rock layers built slowly across time. Like a diary the planet wrote while no one was watching. And in these layers we find it all. Fossilized bark from lycopod trees, imprints of dragonflies frozen mid-flight, tiny spores, flakes of pollen, and pieces of carbon black coal. Proof that life once danced here. These records help us understand what came before, how ecosystems collapsed and reformed, how Earth breathed more deeply or more shallowly in different eras, how climate and species, loss and renewal were woven like lullabies into stone. But tonight, I want you to imagine this, dear one, that your life too leaves layers. Every joy, every ache, every goodbye, every quiet triumph no one noticed, it is being pressed gently into your soul. And one day someone, maybe you, maybe someone you love, will look back and say, this is where they grew strong. This is where they endured. This is where they loved and kept going. Just like the earth. So as you drift off now, let go of the rush. Time is not your enemy. It is your archivist, your silent keeper. And tonight, it's writing down something precious. You, still here, still evolving, still worth remembering. Earth's memory beneath our feet, stratigraphic clues, and the heart of stone. As the last embers of the Carboniferous glow softly in our tale, we come to a place often overlooked. Yet it is here, in the quiet strata beneath our feet, that the Earth keeps her deepest secrets. Stratigraphy, the study of rock layers, is more than science. It is storytelling through stone. Each sediment layer is a timestamp, each band of shale or coal, a verse from an ancient poem sung long before human voices. The Carboniferous left behind one of the most vivid geological diaries in Earth's deep history. Dark coal seams, compressed leaf beds, ripple marks from vanished rivers, all gently preserved across continents. And when we slice into these layers today, whether in a mountainside quarry or a cross-section in a museum, we see the timeline of transformation. We learn not just what lived, but how it lived, and what was lost when climates shifted, mountains rose, or forests fell into silence. But this isn't just about fossils or rocks. No, dear listener, it's about how Earth remembers, and how we, too, carry hidden layers. Within you lie strata of experience, some joyful, some heavy, moments pressed down by time and pressure. But like coal, they hold warmth, and like stone, they endure. So tonight, let us not fear what's buried. Let us honor it. For your story, like Earth's, is not only written on the surface. It is layered, rich, and ancient in its wisdom. And even if the world only sees the topsoil, you and I, we know there's a mountain's worth of story inside you. Sleep now on sacred ground. The Earth remembers, and so do you. Part 5: Food Chains and Biological Networks. 1. Forest Food Chain Basics. The primary producers, silent architects of energy. Close your eyes, dear listener, and take a slow breath. The air you inhale, rich, soft, life-giving, carries with it a story that began 300 million years ago, in a forest where the trees had no flowers, no fruits, but still, they dreamed of sky. Here, in the Carboniferous twilight, the first great producers of life's energy grew. Lycopods with towering spires, giant horsetails that shimmered in the wet breeze, and ancient tree ferns with fronds like open hands. They drank sunlight the way we drink comfort, and through photosynthesis, that quiet miracle, they turned light into sugar, air into oxygen, and emptiness into nourishment for all creatures yet to come. These plants were not just greenery. They were pillars of existence, the starting point of every food chain, offering their bodies to be eaten, decomposed, recycled, over and over again with no complaint. And perhaps, like them, you've given much of yourself, your energy, your time, your kindness that no one saw. But just as these ancient trees shaped the very air we breathe, so too does your presence. Quiet though it may be, nourish those around you in invisible ways. Let the forest remind you, you don't have to roar to matter. Sometimes the most powerful things grow in silence and feed the whole world. So rest here in their shade. Let the chlorophyll dreams carry you. And remember, you are part of this cycle of giving, not alone, but rooted in something deep and beautiful. The decomposers, Earth's gentle recyclers. Down here, dear listener, beneath the canopy's quiet breath, a second world stirs, soft, slow, and sacred. This is the realm of decomposers, those who take what once lived and return it gently into the arms of the earth. In the Carboniferous forests, where time moved like mist, the forest floor was alive with fungi, bacteria, and tiny invertebrates. They didn't shine or tower like the lycopods above, but they played a role just as vital, transforming death into life. When a tree fell, as all trees eventually do, Its wood was slowly kissed by moisture and microbial touch. Fungi crept in like silver threads, breaking down lignin and cellulose, in a process millions of years old and still quietly at work today. These decomposers became the forest's memory keepers, preserving the essence of every plant and creature that returned to soil. And over time, over pressure, over silence, coal was born. Yes, the black rock we burn today, once pulsed with chlorophyll and decay, a gift wrapped in the humility of rot. And maybe you too have known times of falling, moments where something in your life collapsed, and you wondered, what now? What good could come of this? Let the decomposers answer. Even in endings, there is alchemy. Even in darkness, there is purpose. Tonight, lie back and listen. The forest says that what is broken will one day nourish something new. So let it go, let it sink, and trust. The earth knows what to do with what you can no longer carry. Soil microbiomes, the hidden web below. Beneath your feet, where the roots whisper and the leaves come to rest, there lies a world almost no eye sees, yet it is the beating heart of the forest. In the Carboniferous, this realm was rich with mystery, teeming with microorganisms, this hidden web of bacteria, fungi, and tiny soil dwellers, wove together the fates of trees, insects, and even the air itself. They weren't grand or loud. They didn't fly or grow tall, but they were powerful, breaking down matter, cycling nutrients, communicating through chemical whispers. Each patch of soil was like a brain, pulsing with intention and response. When a tree needed help, its roots called out, and the microbes answered. They unlocked minerals, fought off disease, balanced moisture and pH with quiet precision. This was not just dirt. It was a living community, and it held the forest together like a soft, unseen net. And maybe, just maybe, you too have a world inside you that others don't see. A network of resilience, memories, silent instincts, the parts of you that keep growing even in the dark. You are not alone in that hidden place. Just as the forest had its silent helpers, so too do you carry inner healers, restorers, and wise voices below the surface. So rest your weary thoughts tonight. Let the soil beneath your dreams remind you, even what seems forgotten is still connected. Even what feels small matters greatly. And now, if you're ready, we'll follow the rhythm of the forest breath itself, into the sacred cycles of nutrients, where nothing is wasted and all returns home. Shall I take you there, dreamer? Nutrient cycling, the breath of the forest. Imagine the Carboniferous forest not as still, but as breathing in and out, soft and slow, through leaves and roots, wind and rain. In every fallen frond, every droplet of dew, a quiet exchange takes place. Carbon, once captured from the air, settles into the soil. Nitrogen, born from decay, rises into roots. Phosphorus, unearthed by fungi, nourishes new growth. Nothing is wasted here. Nothing is forgotten. Everything, every cell, every speck, has a role to play in this eternal cycle. The trees do not hoard. The fungi do not envy. The bacteria do not complain. Instead, they give, receive, transform, and release, again and again. And what if we lived that way too? What if your heartbreak today becomes someone's shelter tomorrow? What if your kindness, once dismissed, returns to you in another form, like roots wrapping gently around a stone? In the Carboniferous, the forest didn't fear endings. It trusted the cycle. So tonight, if you carry something heavy, a failure, a goodbye, a moment you wish you could change. Know this, it is not the end. It is becoming. You are part of a rhythm far older than sorrow. Let your breath slow with the forest's own. Let it rise and fall, and know that you, too, are part of the turning. Balance and imbalance, lessons from the ancient forest. The Carboniferous forest was a masterpiece of balance. Sunlight filtered through tall canopies, nutrients cycled from death to life, oxygen filled the air in abundance, and every creature, great or small, had a place in the intricate web. But balance is not stillness. It is a quiet dance, and sometimes it falters. In moments when decomposers couldn't keep pace with falling trees, layers of organic matter piled up, unbroken, uneaten, and so began the slow formation of coal, fossilized memory of imbalance, or perhaps a different kind of harmony. Too much oxygen. Insects grew enormous, breathing in abundance, racing toward the edges of their limits. Too little decay. Nutrients locked away, roots stretching in vain. Yet the forest didn't collapse. It adapted. New plants evolved. Microbes shifted strategies. Light reached different layers. And through it all, the earth kept breathing. Maybe you, too, have felt that wobble, when life spins too fast, or sinks too still, when you feel too much or not enough. But imbalance is not failure. It's a message, a moment to pause, to soften, to listen to what your soul is asking. The forest teaches this. Change is not chaos. It is the beginning of growth. So tonight, if your world feels uneven, if you've tipped too far into worry or weariness, remember the ancient canopy where even imbalance was transformed into something sacred. You are not broken. You are in motion, and nature moves with you. Whispers of the forest, what the Carboniferous teaches us. Even now, as you lie still, eyes soft, heart listening, the forest remembers you. Not your name, not your face, but the way you felt when you longed for peace, the ache for meaning, the quiet hope that maybe, just maybe, you're part of something beautiful, and you are. The Carboniferous was not just a time. It was a promise that life finds a way, even when the world feels heavy. In the soft drip of ancient rain, in the dance of fern shadows, in the silent glow of spores beneath the leaf litter, the forest made space for every kind of being, tall and tiny, strong and soft, growing and grieving. And now, as its memory wraps around your thoughts, perhaps you feel it too, that even decay leads to renewal, that your quiet efforts ripple further than you know, that healing is not always fast, but always possible. Maybe tonight you needed more than facts. Maybe you came not for coal or dragonflies, but for a lullaby you forgot you once knew. So let the Carboniferous sing it to you now. You are not alone. Your breath is part of the same air those trees gave. Your rest matters. Your story matters. Sleep now in the heart of the forest. The canopy watches over you. The soil holds you softly, and the pulse of an ancient world beats gently within your chest. 2. The leaf gnawers and the predators. Leaf eaters and little predators, the living threads of the forest web. Can you hear it? The soft crunch of a fern leaf, the swift scurry of feet across the forest floor, the quiet tension between hunger and caution. In the Carboniferous world, long before tigers or wolves, life was smaller but no less complex. Tiny creatures, ancient insects and the first reptiles, wove the fabric of the forest's food chain with each breath they took. Among the earliest leaf eaters were primitive beetles, wandering the mossy ground and nibbling at massive fronds. Their jaws left delicate trails on tree bark, small signs of a new kind of consumption, the plant-based diet. But where there are grazers, there are hunters. Enter the small insectivorous reptiles, like Hylonomus, no bigger than your hand, light-footed, bright-eyed, and utterly silent as they stalked. They hunted not with strength, but with stillness, waiting, watching, then striking with precision. These early predators didn't roar or pounce. They crept, they survived, and in doing so, they shaped the behavior of those around them. Caterpillars hid better. Insects learned to fly farther. Ferns grew higher. Everything evolved together. It was not a war, but a dance, a quiet choreography of give and take, of fear and resilience. And you, dear one, maybe you know that feeling too, of being hunted by pressure, of trying to grow in the shadow of competition. But like these ancient beings, you have instincts older than words. You've adapted more than you realize. You've survived. So rest knowing that even in your stillness, you are part of the great flow of life, like a fern, like a hunter, like the heartbeat of a forest older than time. Would you like to follow the trail further into the deeper weave of this forest web? The invisible weavers, decomposers, and the renewal of the forest. Beneath the towering lycopods and whispering ferns, there lived an army of quiet givers, not warriors, not predators, not even visible to most eyes. And yet, without them, the Carboniferous forest would have simply stopped. These were the decomposers, fungi, bacteria, and tiny soil-dwelling invertebrates. They worked silently night and day, turning fallen leaves, broken branches, and even lifeless creatures into nourishment for all that would grow next. They did not sing, they did not bloom, but they healed the earth with every breath. Their work made the ground fertile, the cycles complete, and the forest timeless. Imagine them now, threads of mycelium wrapping around ancient wood, breaking down what once stood tall, not to destroy but to transform. Even death here was not an ending. It was a whisper of continuation. And perhaps that, dear one, is a comfort you need tonight, that what feels like a loss, a fading, a falling, might simply be a return to the soil of self, where something beautiful may grow again. So often we celebrate the strong, the bright, the living, but the forest teaches, those who carry pain away, who gently dissolve the weight of what once was, they are the quiet heroes. You too have decomposers of the soul, moments, memories, even tears that slowly break apart your burdens, returning your spirit to softness. Trust that, like the Carboniferous forest, you are renewing even in stillness. Now, shall we step one last time into the full web, the grand interconnected harmony of all these lives? The final breath of part 5 is waiting for you, gentle and wise as the forest floor. Symbiosis, when life holds hands with life. Beneath the forest's emerald canopy, a different kind of story unfolded, not of struggle, but of companionship. While some creatures fought for food and light, others learned to live by helping. Hidden beneath the soil, fungi reached out in tiny threads, mycelium to grasp the roots of towering plants. This partnership, known as mycorrhizal symbiosis, was one of the most ancient and beautiful bonds on Earth. The fungi gave nutrients, phosphorus, and minerals from the depths of the ground. The plants returned sugars made from sunlight, a silent promise exchanged through soil and time. Above, small insects pollinated ancient seed ferns, unknowingly helping future forests to bloom. Even some early arthropods nested among moss, gaining shelter while spreading spores. Symbiosis wasn't always grand. Sometimes it was simply not harming one another, living side by side with care. Dear listener, perhaps tonight you carry the weight of doing everything alone. But the forest whispers something soft to you. You are not alone. Even in stillness, someone or something may be reaching toward you, offering what you need, quietly, gently, just like those ancient trees. You too can share roots. Let this story remind you it's okay to receive. It's okay to be supported. Now, shall we sink even deeper into the invisible kingdom below your feet, the earth beneath, the microscopic architects of the forest? Let your thoughts sink now, past the fallen leaves, below the beetles, into the quiet mystery of the soil. Down here in the Carboniferous ground, billions of tiny architects worked in silence. Bacteria, archaea, protozoa, and ancient fungi. They broke down rotting wood, decaying ferns, insect shells. They transformed the dead into nourishment, building the forest from the bottom up. These decomposers weren't grand in form. You couldn't see them, or hear them, or thank them. And yet, without them, nothing above could grow. Nitrogen-fixing bacteria enriched the soil. Fungi extended like veins through the earth, delivering nutrients to roots. Some microbes even formed miniature partnerships, living inside plant cells to help them absorb minerals. It was a hidden harmony, a dance of atoms and life. And isn't that comforting? That even what feels broken or wasted, in nature, in yourself, can become the beginning of something nourishing? You might feel small some days, invisible, forgotten, but down in the earth the smallest lives. We're the most essential. You too can hold great purpose, even if no one notices yet. Let yourself rest tonight, knowing that unseen efforts can hold up entire forests. Now let's pull back and view it all as one. A great, breathing web of life. The living web, how every life touched another. Imagine the forest now not as a collection of things, but as one single living web. From the sky-touching lycopod trees to the tiny fungus feeding off a buried branch. Everything was connected. A fallen leaf fed the microbes. The microbes fed the plant roots. The plants grew and fed the insects. The insects fed the reptiles. And in time, everything returned to the soil, a circle without beginning or end. This wasn't a food chain. It was a food symphony. And in this symphony, every role mattered. Every breath, every death, even the smallest actions rippled through the web. Sometimes we forget that. We feel isolated in our own routines. We wonder if we're making any difference. But the forest shows us another way to think. You too are part of a web. Your kindness feeds someone else's hope. Your rest gives space for healing. Your quiet strength can shape someone else's tomorrow. The Carboniferous world was held together, not by dominance, but by deep interdependence. And so are we. Let that settle in your heart like mist on moss. You don't have to be everything. You only need to be your thread in the web. Honest, present, enough. Now, dear traveler, our story is nearly at its pause, but one final transformation waits beneath our feet. Let's follow the roots into the deep, dark silence, where ancient forests sleep and awaken as coal. Shall we? Long sleep, how forests became coal. Now, dear listener, close your eyes for a moment. Imagine a forest vast, green, humming with life, and then imagine it growing still. A storm comes, a tree falls, a 1,000-year-old lycopod collapses into a quiet swamp. Its leaves no longer drink light, its trunk no longer stretches skyward. But this is not the end. It is the beginning of a long sleep. In the Carboniferous world, the air was wet and rich with oxygen. But deep in the swampy soils, decay came slowly. Dead trees piled upon one another, layer after layer. Leaves, bark, moss, ferns, all buried under blankets of mud, sealed away from oxygen, preserved from time. And so began a transformation, not of days or years, but of millions of silent, pressing seasons. Beneath the weight of earth and memory, those forests turned into coal, black seams of carbon, still holding the sun's energy they once drank in. A gift from the past, wrapped in silence. Isn't it beautiful to know that even in falling, something was preserved? That even in death, life left behind light? Sometimes we, too, collapse. We fall into the mud of exhaustion, covered by grief, uncertainty, or change. But perhaps what feels like an end is simply the beginning of your long sleep, where something deep within you is quietly turning to strength. So rest tonight. Let the weight of the day press gently around you, like ancient layers of silt, and trust that what you are becoming in the dark may one day fuel a future you cannot yet imagine. The forest slept and woke again as fire. 3. Comprehensive ecosystem. The great living web, a harmonized ecosystem. In the hush of ancient forests, life did something extraordinary. It began to weave itself together. Tiny fungal threads embraced the roots of towering trees, forming mycorrhizal partnerships that fed and protected them. In return, trees shared sugars from their leaves. An ancient pact whispered in silence. Ferns, lycopsids, and horsetails leaned on these invisible alliances, thriving in nutrient-poor soils thanks to their microscopic companions. Even insects, fluttering or crawling beneath the canopy, took part. Some helped spread spores, others pollinated, unknowingly strengthening the bond between plant and animal life. Beneath the surface, in the quiet soil, microbes worked tirelessly. They broke down the fallen, recycled decay into nourishment, and stitched the past into the future. This wasn't a forest of warriors. It was a community of kindness, of quiet cooperation, of balance. And dear listener, perhaps you too have felt alone in the shadows. But even the oldest trees once leaned on unseen help. Even they whispered, "I cannot do this alone." What would it feel like to trust your own roots? To allow invisible support to reach you? To know that, like the Carboniferous forest, you are part of a great web, delicate, yes, but also resilient beyond measure? Tonight, as you drift, imagine those threads. Imagine the warmth of the soil cradling you, the hush of leaves above, and the invisible hands below, lifting you toward light. We are stronger when we're woven together. And like the forests of long ago, you don't have to grow alone. Soil whisperers, microscopic guardians beneath our feet. A blend of gentle storytelling, deep evolutionary science, and emotional healing. Beneath your feet, under the forest's fallen leaves and soft decay, lives a world so small it goes unseen. Yet without it, nothing above could survive. The Carboniferous forest floor was not just a resting place for fallen trunks and drifting spores. It was alive, buzzing not with insects, but with invisible caretakers. Bacteria, fungi, and tiny protozoa moved quietly through the soil, breaking down dead matter into usable nutrients. They were the bridge between death and life. When a great lycopod tree collapsed, these microbes whispered to it, gently unraveling its body back into the earth. This was not destruction. It was alchemy, a sacred returning. From one life, many others were born. Some microbes fixed nitrogen into the soil, feeding the next generation of plants. Others created networks through which trees could exchange resources and even warnings. Messages in the dark, passed from root to root like ancient wisdom. Isn't it comforting, dear listener, to think that even in the places no one sees, quiet forces are at work, tending to what's broken? Perhaps you've had moments when you felt buried, under grief, under change, under silence. But like those ancient microbes, something within you may be working, in secret, to turn that heaviness into growth. Tonight, feel the earth beneath you, not just as dirt or ground, but as memory, as care, as a soft cradle for all that is becoming. The Carboniferous didn't thrive because of giants alone. It flourished because of the smallest souls, the ones who worked in silence. And so do you. The long sleep, forests becoming coal. Deep in the heart of the Carboniferous swamps, trees lived their full green lives, stretching skyward, breathing in sunlight, anchoring deeply into wet soils. But when their time ended, they didn't disappear. Instead, they rested. One by one, the giants fell. Their trunks sank into mud and water, where oxygen was scarce and decay slowed to a crawl. Here, in the quiet blackness of the swamp floor, a slow miracle began. Over millions of years, layer upon layer of plant remains built up. Pressure mounted, heat deepened, and slowly, the carbon once captured from the sky turned to coal, a compressed memory of green life, now hidden in stone. Coal is more than energy. It is fossilized sunlight, a forest's final lullaby, pressed into silence. And you, dear listener, have you ever felt your past weigh heavy, like layers pressing from above? Perhaps that weight, too, is becoming something powerful. A memory you carry not as burden, but as quiet fuel. In time, even darkness transforms. Even what feels buried forever can one day ignite. This was the gift of the Carboniferous, a forest that kept its light, even underground. As you rest tonight, imagine your own long sleep, not of loss, but of becoming. The time will come to rise again, but for now, let it settle, let it rest, let it become energy for the future. The forest remembers, and so do you. Loops of life, how nothing truly ends. In the Carboniferous world, nothing truly ended. Even in death, life rearranged itself, cycling through forms, roles, and meaning. A towering tree might fall, but its body would feed fungi. Those fungi, in turn, would nourish soil microbes. Insects would carry spores. Roots would take in the minerals left behind. And in time, a new sapling would rise from the very place its ancestor had once stood. This was not a line. It was a loop, a spiral, a quiet dance of transformation. Every leaf fed the earth. Every creature, even in passing, became the beginning of something else. Carbon passed from breath to bark to ground to stone. Even the sky shifted, oxygen surged, CO2 declined. Forests didn't just live in the world. They changed its chemistry, rewrote its cycles. And isn't that comforting, dear one? When we feel something is lost forever, perhaps it's only begun to take on a new form. Your heartbreak, your pauses, your quiet endings. They 2 may be part of a larger circle you can't yet see. The Carboniferous didn't rush. It let the loops unfold slowly, gently, perfectly in their time. So tonight, as you breathe in and out, feel the loop in you, the inhale and exhale, the closing and beginning. And remember, nothing you've lived is wasted. It may be becoming something beautiful, as it was in the ancient forest. So it is in you, the soul of the forest, memory, breath, and becoming. What is a forest, really? Not just trees, not just shadows and roots. A true forest, like those of the Carboniferous, is a living memory, a breath that moves through countless lives, from giant ferns to flickering insects, from microbes in the mud to the mist that clings to morning leaves. Everything is connected. The ancient forest pulsed with unseen wisdom. Its soul wasn't a single tree or creature or sound. It was the way everything spoke to everything else. A cricket chirping near a decaying log, a fungal thread reaching out to feed a sapling, a dragonfly rising into warm air rich with oxygen. Every action echoed through the whole. And maybe, just maybe, you felt that too. Those moments in your life when the world feels strangely whole, as if your heartbeat belongs not only to your body, but to the rhythm of something far larger. Perhaps this is why forests calm us, why even the thought of them softens the tightest breath. They remind us of something we forgot, that we're not separate, that we belong. The Carboniferous forest did not have technology or cities or words, but it had something we still seek: balance, harmony, purpose without rush. So tonight, breathe in that memory. Let the soul of the forest wrap around you like a cloak. You are not drifting. You are held by time, by story, by the quiet logic of life itself. And as this chapter closes, let its breath stay with you, for the story is not over. It is only becoming. Part 6, The Carboniferous Legacy. 1. The Coal Treasure. Forests that chose to sleep. Once, long before any human lit a fire or dreamed of cities, vast forests blanketed the earth. Giant lycopods, tree ferns, and towering horsetails stretched skyward, their leaves whispering in the humid breeze of the Carboniferous. They drank sunlight, exhaled oxygen, and covered the world in green. But time passed, and one by one, these trees fell. And here is where the story turns quiet. These fallen forests did not vanish. They chose to sleep. In the waterlogged swamps, where oxygen was scarce and decay was slow, the ancient plants rested. Layer upon layer, they gathered soft, soggy memories pressed gently by the earth. With every century, every grain of silt, the pressure grew. Time thickened, heat settled in, and deep below, something beautiful was becoming. Carbon was concentrating. Sunlight was being stored. Coal was being born. We often think of coal only as fuel, black rock to be burned. But it is more than that. It is fossilized sunlight, the echo of forests that once sang. It is a gift from a world we'll never walk through again, but whose warmth we still feel in every light we turn on. And you, dear listener, have you ever needed to rest, to pause, to let time do its slow magic? So did the trees. They didn't disappear. They transformed. And perhaps so can you. Let this be your reminder. Not all stillness is wasted. Some silences become treasures. Some endings become light. So as you close your eyes tonight, imagine the roots below you, not gone, but dreaming. And beneath the quiet, something powerful is waiting. How coal was born, a symphony of pressure and time. deep beneath your feet lies a music made not of sound, but of time. A symphony of pressure, patience, and quiet transformation. This was how coal, one of Earth's greatest hidden gifts, was born. The plants of the Carboniferous were rich in lignin, a tough material that made them stand tall, resistant, and strangely hard to decay. In the oxygen-poor swamps, bacteria couldn't break them down fully. Instead of vanishing, the plant matter accumulated, thick and heavy in endless beds. Layer upon layer, year upon year, the ancient world gently pressed its memories into the earth. Sediments rained down, rivers shifted course, tectonic plates moved. The temperature rose not to fire, but to warmth. And in this crucible of soft darkness, the once green leaves, the ancient bark, the gentle ferns became black rock, dense with carbon and history. This wasn't destruction. It was refinement. From peat to lignite, then to bituminous coal, and in some places to anthracite, each step marked by time and transformation. A slow geological breath. And isn't that how many deep things form? Not with noise or speed, but with stillness and weight. With years and layers and quiet compression. You too may carry things inside that feel buried, forgotten. But like coal, they might only be becoming, forming slowly into something strong, something that could one day fuel light. So next time you see black rock, remember, it's not just stone. It's an echo, a record, a slow becoming. And in your own depths, perhaps something sacred is forming there too. Fossil sunlight fueling the modern world. What if I told you that inside each lump of coal, sunlight still sleeps? Yes, coal is more than just black rock. It is fossilized light, captured in leaves that once basked beneath ancient suns, stored in trunks of trees that touched the Carboniferous sky. When humanity first learned to burn coal, it was like releasing ancient days. Those fires that powered steam engines, factories, and cities weren't born from flame alone. They were born from a forest's memory. From sunlight that fell 300 million years ago, coal sparked the Industrial Revolution. It pulled trains across continents and lit the homes of millions. It fueled machines that built bridges, books, and dreams. A quiet forest's past had become the heart of human progress. But as we burned it, we also awakened its shadow. Carbon, once safely held within the earth, rose into the sky again, not as leaf or tree, but as invisible gas. Still, the story is not one of blame. It is one of awareness. We are children of those forests too, and with every light we switch on, we are touching that legacy. Pause for a moment. Can you feel it? Somewhere, in the warmth of your tea, the hum of your room, or the pulse of your electricity, there's a forest whispering from long ago. I once held sunlight for you. Let us remember that gift, and treat it not as a fuel alone, but as a bridge between worlds ancient and modern, between memory and responsibility. The shadow beneath the gift. Every gift carries a shadow. The forests of the Carboniferous gave us coal, compressed sunlight, silent power. But as we opened that gift, eager and bright-eyed, we did not yet see the cost. Burning coal releases more than heat. It breathes out carbon once trapped in ancient trees, carbon that rises again into the atmosphere, warming the planet far beyond what those ferns and lycopods could have ever imagined. The same forests that once cooled the earth now contribute to its fever. Rivers once shaped by gentle rains now flood and dry in erratic rhythms. Glaciers melt, coral reefs bleach, the balance tilts. And yet, dear listener, let us not dwell in guilt. let us rest in reflection. Because coal's shadow doesn't mean we must reject the gift. It means we must evolve with it. We are no longer innocent children of fire. We are heirs of memory. We know now what the Carboniferous didn't, that power must be matched by care, and use must be met with humility. Tonight, as you lie quietly beneath your ceiling of stars or plaster, imagine a world where energy comes not from burning, but from listening to the wind, the sun, the earth's breath, and whisper this promise to the coal still sleeping below. We have heard your song. We are learning to sing our own. Some stories darken before they glow again, and every shadow is cast by light. What we owe the ancient forests. Close your eyes, dear friend. Can you feel the weight of ancient leaves? Can you hear the hush of trees that once reached the sky, now sleeping quietly beneath your world? The coal that warms our homes, fuels our journeys, and lights our cities is not just carbon. It is a memory made solid, a lullaby of ferns, moss, and bark that chose to stay with us, even after their time had ended. We owe the ancient forests more than gratitude. We owe them remembrance, because without their stillness, our motion would not be possible. They taught us patience. They taught us how to store light, how to carry energy across millennia. And now they teach us something deeper, how to honor what we use and to give back to what has given. So perhaps, tonight, as you drift toward sleep, you might whisper a silent thank you, not just to coal, but to the trees it came from, to the swamps that cradled it, to the silence that held it close, and to yourself, yes, to you who is learning, adapting, remembering. The past lives in you, in all of us. We are not separate from Earth's story. We are its latest breath. So sleep now, cradled by time. Let the soft, dark earth of 300 million years ago wrap around your dreams. And may the light of ancient forests guide you home again, not in fire but in understanding. Beneath our feet, within our story, beneath the cities we build, beneath the fields we harvest, beneath even the mountains we admire, the Carboniferous still breathes. It doesn't speak loudly. It doesn't rise in waves, but it's there, in the silence, in the coal seams and the compressed ferns. A quiet message, pressed between layers of time. You are part of something older than fear, older than worry, older than hurry. Coal is not merely energy. It is memory made useful. It reminds us that transformation is possible, that what once fell and decayed in darkness can become light. As you walk, dear listener, know this: every step you take is over a world that once bloomed. Every breath you draw carries atoms once held in the lungs of dragonflies and ferns. Isn't that comforting? To know that you are never far from Earth's past, that your present, no matter how noisy, is cradled in the patience of 300 million years? We've taken much from those forests. Now we begin the journey of returning, not coal perhaps, but care, not carbon, but compassion. Let this be the promise we carry forward, to walk lighter, to listen deeper, to live as part of the story, not just on top of it. So sleep now, gentle soul. Let your dreams root down into the black soil of memory. And may the coal beneath your bed be not just fuel, but a lullaby, a reminder. Even in darkness, Earth remembers how to bloom. The shadow beneath the gift. Every gift carries a shadow. The forests of the Carboniferous gave us coal, compressed sunlight, silent power. But as we opened that gift, eager and bright-eyed, we did not yet see the cost. Burning coal releases more than heat. It breathes out carbon once trapped in ancient trees, carbon that rises again into the atmosphere, warming the planet far beyond what those ferns and lycopods could have ever imagined. The same forests that once cooled the earth now contribute to its fever. Rivers once shaped by gentle rains now flood and dry in erratic rhythms. Glaciers melt, coral reefs bleach, the balance tilts. And yet, dear listener, let us not dwell in guilt. Let us rest in reflection. Because coal's shadow doesn't mean we must reject the gift. It means we must evolve with it. We are no longer innocent children of fire. We are heirs of memory. We know now what the Carboniferous didn't, that power must be matched by care, and use must be met with humility. Tonight, as you lie quietly beneath your ceiling of stars or plaster, imagine a world where energy comes not from burning, but from listening to the wind, the sun, the earth's breath, and whisper this promise to the coal still sleeping below. We have heard your song. We are learning to sing our own. Some stories darken before they glow again, and every shadow is cast by light. What we owe the ancient forests. Close your eyes, dear friend. Can you feel the weight of ancient leaves? Can you hear the hush of trees that once reached the sky, now sleeping quietly beneath your world? The coal that warms our homes, fuels our journeys, and lights our cities is not just carbon. It is a memory made solid, a lullaby of ferns, moss, and bark that chose to stay with us, even after their time had ended. We owe the ancient forests more than gratitude. We owe them remembrance, because without their stillness, our motion would not be possible. They taught us patience. They taught us how to store light, how to carry energy across millennia. And now they teach us something deeper, how to honor what we use and to give back to what has given. So perhaps, tonight, as you drift toward sleep, you might whisper a silent thank you, not just to coal, but to the trees it came from, to the swamps that cradled it, to the silence that held it close, and to yourself, yes, to you who is learning, adapting, remembering. The past lives in you, in all of us. We are not separate from Earth's story. We are its latest breath. So sleep now, cradled by time. Let the soft, dark earth of 300 million years ago wrap around your dreams. And may the light of ancient forests guide you home again, not in fire but in understanding. Beneath our feet, within our story, beneath the cities we build, beneath the fields we harvest, beneath even the mountains we admire, the Carboniferous still breathes. It doesn't speak loudly. It doesn't rise in waves, but it's there, in the silence, in the coal seams and the compressed ferns. A quiet message, pressed between layers of time. You are part of something older than fear, older than worry, older than hurry. Coal is not merely energy. It is memory made useful. It reminds us that transformation is possible, that what once fell and decayed in darkness can become light. As you walk, dear listener, know this: every step you take is over a world that once bloomed. Every breath you draw carries atoms once held in the lungs of dragonflies and ferns. Isn't that comforting? To know that you are never far from Earth's past, that your present, no matter how noisy, is cradled in the patience of 300 million years? We've taken much from those forests. Now we begin the journey of returning, not coal perhaps, but care, not carbon, but compassion. Let this be the promise we carry forward, to walk lighter, to listen deeper, to live as part of the story, not just on top of it. So sleep now, gentle soul. Let your dreams root down into the black soil of memory. And may the coal beneath your bed be not just fuel, but a lullaby, a reminder Even in darkness, Earth remembers how to bloom. Fossils as time capsules, holding moments in stone. What is a fossil, truly? More than stone, more than biology. A fossil is a memory held by the Earth, a still frame of a moment that was never meant to last, yet somehow endured. Inside each preserved wing, leaf, or bone lies a breath of time. The hush of a forest at dawn, the ripple of water over roots, the heartbeat of a small creature finding its way in a vast green world. In the Carboniferous, conditions were perfect for this memory-making. Swampy wetlands with low oxygen slowed decay. Fallen trees became cradles. Layers of mud wrapped gently around bodies and branches, pressing them into place like a lullaby that hardened over millions of years. Some fossils, like the bark of Sigillaria or the spiraling leaflets of a seed fern, are so detailed you'd think the plant had just stepped away. Others, like delicate insect wings or reptile teeth, feel as though they might shatter with a sigh. And yet they survived. These are not just records for paleontologists. They are messages to you, whispers from the deep past saying, what you leave behind matters, even the quiet parts. So if you've ever wondered whether your small, unnoticed moments have weight, look to the fossils. A curled tail in a fossil bed, a bite mark frozen in a leaf, a breath that became stone. They remind us that time is not just a destroyer. It is also a storyteller. And your story, too, is being written layer by layer, breath by breath. The emotional legacy of fossils, what the Earth remembers. We often think of fossils as cold, distant things, dusty bones, museum pieces, relics locked in time. But in truth, fossils feel, or at least they help us feel. They remind us that the world has known birth and death long before we arrived, that forests have grown, fallen, and turned to stone, and still new life has come, that everything passes, and yet some things remain. A fossil is the Earth's way of saying, I remember. It remembers the sound of ancient dragonflies brushing through fern canopies. It remembers the hush of moss-covered soil beneath reptilian feet. It remembers the way the first seedling pushed through peat, reaching toward a sky rich with oxygen. And somehow it remembers you too, because in every fossil is a reflection of your own life. The moments you thought were lost, the steps you took when no one was watching, the quiet strength it took to evolve without applause. Fossils are not just scientific evidence. They are emotional anchors. They connect us to the ones who came before, creatures who dared to try something new, to step onto land, to breathe deeper. And they offer comfort that nothing beautiful is truly gone. It simply changes form. So tonight, as you rest, know this: you are part of an ancient story. Your struggles, your silences, your transformations, they are not forgotten. They are being layered gently into the memory of the Earth. And perhaps one day, someone will hold something you left behind and feel seen. 3. Later evolutionary influences. The seeds of the Permian, when forests whispered of a new world. Close your eyes now, dear dreamer. Can you hear it? Beneath the hush of ancient leaves and the soft sigh of moss-covered soil, a change is coming. The Carboniferous was not just a time of green wonders and still waters. It was also the quiet rehearsal for a more demanding world. This chapter, so lush and wet, quietly planted the seeds of the Permian. As the great swamp forests stretched across the land, a few bold creatures began to prepare, not with intention, but through the slow language of evolution. Reptiles, still small and soft-footed, carried within them a gift, the amniotic egg, sheltered, self-contained, and protective, it allowed life to walk farther from water, to find freedom in dryness. These reptiles, once shy shadows beneath fern canopies, would become pioneers in the coming dryness. Their lungs grew stronger, their skin tougher, their stride more confident. No longer bound to the soggy cradles of their amphibian kin, they ventured out into drier winds, thinner air, and brighter suns. And the plants, too, were shifting. Seeds replaced spores and roots dug deeper. Forests began to fragment. The great coal swamps would fade. But in their place, something new was taking shape. This was not the end of the story. This was a whisper of what's next. So if you've ever felt the quiet before a life change, the sense that something inside you is preparing, you are not alone. The Earth has felt this too. The Carboniferous taught life how to endure, but the Permian, it would teach life how to transform. And soon, dear traveler, we will walk into that bold new world together. From swamp to steppe, the rise of dry ecosystems. The Carboniferous had sung in watery tones, a lullaby of rain and root, mist and moss. But as time flowed forward, the skies began to still. The clouds pulled back. The once-soaked land began to breathe dryness. Swamps shrank. Wetlands became patchy. What was once a green cathedral of trees became interrupted by open plains, exposed soil, and the golden hush of drier air. And in this space, life adapted. Early reptiles, already gifted with protective eggs and tougher skin, thrived where amphibians could not. Without needing to return to the water for reproduction, they walked farther and stayed longer on dry ground. With every step, they rewrote what it meant to survive. Plants, too, began their transformation. The lush lycopods gave way to seed ferns and conifers, quiet revolutionaries that could endure drought, grow in uplands, and send their offspring through wind, not water. These were not easy times. Change rarely feels gentle. And yet, within these shifts lived a quiet hope, a resilience born from challenge. The forests of the Carboniferous may seem like dreams now, buried beneath coal and time, but their lessons echoed. Ecosystems no longer depended solely on water's embrace. Life had learned to rise, to root deeper, to reach farther. And maybe, friend, you felt that too. That moment when something comfortable began to fade, and the road ahead looked dry, unknown. But like the creatures of this ancient earth, you adjusted. You became something stronger, not despite the change, but because of it. Let the Carboniferous remind you, even swamps must drain for deserts to bloom, and life always finds a new way to sing. Shall we explore how these hardy life forms shaped evolution next? The expansion of the amniotes, when eggs carried worlds. Somewhere, nestled beneath ancient ferns and fading canopies, a fragile miracle lay still, not in the shape of a towering tree or thunderous predator, but in something quiet, a shell. Inside, life was safe, protected, breathing through thin membranes, floating in its private sea. This was not just an egg. This was a revolution. The amniotic egg, born in the Carboniferous, was one of evolution's most delicate masterpieces. With its layers of protection, its self-contained nourishment, and its resistance to drying out, it gave reptiles the power to carry water with them, even onto the driest soils. No longer tied to the wet womb of the swamp, these creatures wandered across muddy plains, beneath clearer skies. Their footsteps were light, but their impact, immense. They became many. Some grew swift and lean, others broad and armored. They spread into new habitats, Hills, highlands, dry woodlands, places amphibians could never thrive. This was the beginning of something vast. Every bird, every mammal, even you, carries the legacy of this ancient gift. The quiet strength of a creature that dared to place its young not in water, but in the arms of the earth herself. And so, if tonight your path feels uncertain, or you fear you don't belong in the world around you, remember this. Your story, too, began in a shell of hope. You were made for new ground. You were born to cross thresholds. Close your eyes, little traveler. The world may be vast, but your feet were made to find the way. Just like the first amniotes, you are ready. Shall we now step softly into the anatomical gifts this era gave to all who came after? The carbon blueprint, anatomical innovations that lasted. Not all treasures are gold or glitter. Some lie hidden in bone and breath, in scales and skin, quiet patterns etched into life's unfolding design. The Carboniferous, in its patient years, crafted more than forests. It shaped bodies built to last. Reptiles of this era began to carry within them new blueprints. Stronger rib cages allowed deeper breathing. More upright limbs offered swifter, steadier movement. Jaws became more refined, teeth more specialized. Small changes, perhaps, but together they whispered of a grander future. These adaptations weren't loud. They didn't roar like dinosaurs or thunder like mammoths. They simply worked quietly, efficiently over generations. And because they worked, they remained. To this day, the framework of modern reptiles, birds, and even mammals echoes back to the Carboniferous. Your lungs draw breath in rhythms shaped by ancient rib structures. Your spine, your stride, even your inner ear, bear the ghost prints of this forgotten world. Isn't it comforting to know that even when everything around us changes, some foundations stay? Just like in life, when your outer world shifts, your inner strength remains. Your breath, your heartbeat, your quiet persistence, they carry you forward. So tonight, let your body rest in deep gratitude. It is older than you know, and wiser than you think. Shall we close our journey with one last echo, the gentle farewell of the Carboniferous? The Carboniferous farewell, a lullaby in coal and memory. The forests dim, the dragonflies fall silent, the swamps grow still. The Carboniferous, lush, generous, and long, begins to bow. And as it retreats, it does not vanish. It leaves behind gifts buried deep within Earth's heart. Coal seams, fossil imprints, the bones of reptiles, the whispers of insects that once ruled the skies. But even more than these, it leaves behind a legacy of resilience, of life learning to stretch, to adapt, to evolve not in ease, but in transformation. It teaches us that depth comes not from staying the same, but from changing well. And perhaps your life is in a Carboniferous moment, too. Rich, beautiful, but on the cusp of something new. The air is drying, the ground is shifting, and you wonder, can I go on? Let the earth answer you gently, yes. You were made to carry what matters forward, just as the reptiles did, just as the forests did. You may leave pieces behind, but the essence continues. So sleep now, soft traveler, wrapped in memories of green canopies and soaring wings. Dream of trees as tall as mountains and dragonflies that brushed the stars. And know this, the Carboniferous may end, but you are only beginning. The final whisper of the Carboniferous. Forests of fire and wings of air, a gentle farewell to Carboniferous. Close your eyes now, let your breath deepen, and let the forest return. Once, before cities, before mountains were old, there was a time when the earth breathed more slowly, more softly. It was the Carboniferous, a world of mist-laced jungles and cathedral-tall trees, where dragonflies big as falcons hovered over emerald stillness, where every footstep on the soggy forest floor echoed with secrets kept for hundreds of millions of years. Do you remember? In this twilight kingdom, lycopods reached toward a sky thick with moisture. Ferns unfurled like green lace, brushing against the wings of ancient insects. The land was a great wet cradle, a nursery for roots and spores, moss and breath. And in that breath, there was more oxygen than Earth had ever known. It wrapped around life like a lullaby, fueling, expanding, nurturing, until the forests themselves became lungs of the world. And underground, beneath your feet even now, those forests slumber still, transformed by time into silent black stone. Coal, memory pressed into fire, a gift left by the trees, not just for light and heat, but for remembrance. Every spark that warms us is a whisper from a fern, a spore, a fallen branch, says we lived. We built this earth for you. Above that living tapestry walked the first reptiles. Tiny, uncertain, yet brave. They carried within them the blueprint for all mammals, birds, and lizards to come. Their eggs held oceans inside them, even on dry land. That was the miracle, the beginning of separation from water, and the promise of exploration across deserts, hills, and distant continents. From those early limbs and lungs, every creature that walks today draws its ancestry. Now, as you rest in the dark comfort of night, know this: Carboniferous was not just a chapter in time, it was a deep inhalation, a pause before a harder breath, a kindness before the drought. And tonight you are safe in that breath. So lie still now. Let your heart slow with the rhythm of ancient leaves. Let the dragonfly wings fan dreams across your pillow. And remember, the forest never truly left. It waits in the hush between heartbeats, in the silence between thoughts, in the warmth of coals and stories. Sleep, dear listener, for the world is about to change. Evolution seeds what the Carboniferous gave us. Lean in closer now, as if the earth itself is whispering to you. There are moments in time when life gathers its strength, not with violence, but with patience. The Carboniferous was such a moment, a long, quiet blossoming, like the steady unfolding of a fern in the morning fog. In those ancient forests, life didn't merely grow. It wove itself together. Each root found a rhythm with the next. Each insect carved its own path. And deep within the mossy hush, the blueprint of the future was being etched. Not loudly, but with elegance. It was here that evolution made some of its boldest promises. The first amniotes appeared, tiny, scaled creatures whose eggs no longer needed water to survive. Can you imagine? A shell so delicate yet so revolutionary. With it came freedom, the ability to wander away from ponds and streams, into drylands and sunlit rocks. From that humble beginning would arise turtles, snakes, dinosaurs, and eventually us. But the Carboniferous didn't stop there. It nurtured the first canopy systems, layered forests with light filtering down like sacred fire through green glass. Plants learned to grow tall, and light became a currency of life. Roots dug deep, fungi formed hidden alliances, and bacteria danced quietly in the soil. This was the rise of complex ecosystems of interconnectedness, something we now call the web of life. Even decomposition, often overlooked, became divine. Giant millipedes, beetles, and fungal spores turned fallen trees into food for the future. Decay became a sacred act, returning what had grown to where it had begun. In the Carboniferous, nothing was wasted. Every leaf had a purpose. Every breath mattered. And so did yours. Because what these early life forms taught us, through time, through silence, through stone, is this: that healing takes time, that strength is sometimes soft, that being small or unseen does not mean being unimportant. You too are part of this chain. You too carry within you the courage of the first breath, the resilience of roots, the light-seeking instinct of leaves. Tonight, as you close your eyes, feel those truths curling gently around you, like tendrils of vine, like wings folded in sleep, and trust that what grew once can grow again. The red horizon, a prelude to the Permian. The forest dims now, not all at once, but slowly, as if the earth is exhaling gently, solemnly. The Carboniferous, so lush, so filled with breath and light, begins to change. Rain no longer falls as it once did. Swamps shrink. The skies grow quieter, drier. The canopy, once a tapestry of green, starts to unravel. And through that unraveling, a new world is born. One harder, redder, more exposed. This is not an ending, dear dreamer. It's a transformation. As the wet forests withdraw, the age of reptiles begins to stretch its limbs. These creatures, molded by the Carboniferous, now carry the future on clawed feet. They are survivors, shaped by scarcity, by sun, by the challenge of distance and dryness. Their lungs grow stronger, their scales toughen. They step into a harsher earth and they do not falter. The Permian awaits. It is a land of open plains and thirsty winds, where water becomes rare and adaptation is everything. But don't be afraid. Just as forests once whispered life into every corner, this new chapter teaches strength through struggle. Where the Carboniferous was a lullaby, the Permian is a story of courage. Yet even as we step forward, we do not forget. The coal beneath our feet, it still glows with the memories of a gentler time. The oxygen we breathe was once gifted by trees older than empires. The air in your lungs tonight, it carries echoes of dragonfly wings, the hush of rain on giant leaves, the heartbeat of ancient soil. Can you feel it? You are not apart from this tale. You are made of it. You are walking upon chapters layered in stone. And even when life changes, as it always will, something beautiful remains. Something steady, something kind. So let this be your final breath of the Carboniferous. A breath of green and shadow, of roots and sky. Let it hold you as you drift into sleep, with the promise that every ending is a beginning in disguise. And when you wake, you will walk into the Permian. There, new creatures will rise, reptiles will reign, the climate will test every life form, and resilience will become a sacred art. And far ahead, at the close of that age, a silence will fall, a great extinction. But for now, rest. Rest in the arms of the forest, even as it fades. Sleep gently, traveler of time. The next dream is waiting. Shoo. It's time to rest now. You've wandered far this evening, across mossy dreamlands and into the heart of a forest older than memory. You've walked through towering trees that kissed the sky, heard the wings of giant dragonflies hum like lullabies, and traced the silent steps of creatures who dared to breathe differently. The Carboniferous welcomed you not with noise, but with patience. It taught you how life builds strength quietly, layer by layer, root by root. It showed you that even in a world so vastly different from our own, healing can grow in the most unexpected places, even in swamps, even in shadows. And maybe, like those ancient forests, you too have been trying to hold everything together, to grow through the weight of things unsaid, undone, unfelt. Maybe your heart, like the roots of those trees, has wrapped itself around losses, pressures, and tired hopes. But here, dear one, you do not have to carry anything anymore. Tonight, you can lay it all down. Let the stillness of the ancient earth wash over you now, like soft rain falling through a quiet canopy. Let the oxygen-rich air of 300 million years ago lull you into peace. You are safe here, held by time, cradled by history. Close your eyes. Can you hear the deep breath of the planet beneath you? In this vast and sacred silence, there is no need to be strong, no expectations to meet, no past to replay, just you and the hush of a forest that once dreamed the future into being. And oh, what a gift that dream became. From the first seedling to the first step on dry land, from the flutter of dragonfly wings to the hush of falling leaves, the Carboniferous whispered of resilience, of cooperation, of change. It taught us that every ending is simply the soil for something new, that even when the light fades, something quietly beautiful remains. So if today was hard, if your soul feels stretched or sore, may this story be a balm. May the memory of coal forests, of gentle ferns and spiraled spores, remind you that growth doesn't always look like victory. Sometimes it looks like rest. Sometimes it looks like stillness. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply to pause. And here you are pausing, choosing rest, choosing care, choosing to give your nervous system the gift of ease. What a powerful, quiet kind of rebellion that is. Sleep now, dear listener. Sleep in the arms of ancient trees that once drank the sky. Let their wisdom wrap around you like a blanket of green. Let the dragonflies keep watch by your bedside, their shimmering wings humming lullabies through the night. Let the coiled ferns at your feet remind you that everything, even you, blooms in time. You are not alone. Even in the dark, the earth remembers you. So we'll see you tomorrow in another dream, in another chapter. A new age will rise. The Permian, with its sunlit sands and fierce-hearted reptiles, awaits just beyond the veil of sleep. But tonight, you don't need to go anywhere. Just breathe. Let go. Let the past fall like autumn leaves, and let your breath be soft as fossil dust. You've traveled far, time traveler. Now come home to yourself, to sleep, with love from the forests of time. Sleepy history.